Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
Yeah. So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw
Gotta come and have a look.
that is the epic story of our islands. It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country.
Oh my goodness.
There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio.
Whisk that away. You can see that this object has had a life of its own.
For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail. Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time, because there's so much fantastic archaeology to discover, we're heading back to the north of Britain.
Under a majestic town hall, a city's role in a new global era is unearthed.
The Industrial Revolution is arguably the most important event in human history.
And inspires a new generation of archaeologists.
Would you like to do it as a job?
Yes.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it?
Yes.
A Scottish fortress reveals ancient inhabitants with unexpected skills.
We think it might be a stylus.
Ooh, do we expect the Picts to be literate at this time?
Wow.
And a spectacular Bronze Age find shocks the experts.
I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I'm not going to likely to see one again.
Our first dig is 20 miles east of Carlisle in a small village called Gilsand. From George II to William the Conqueror, back through time, rulers have often struggled to control the rebellious north. And soon after their arrival in Britain, the Romans found they had the same problem. To shore up the empire's northern boundary, Emperor Hadrian came up with a 73-mile-long coast-to-coast solution.
I'm here on Hadrian's Wall, which has to be the most famous landmark in Roman Britain. It was started in 122 AD when the Emperor Hadrian said that he wanted to separate the civilized Roman Empire from the barbarians to the north, in his words. And these are perhaps the best preserved remains all along the wall. This is Birdoswald Roman Fort.
The fort is built into the very structure of Hadrian's Wall, and in its heyday it was home to around 1,000 Roman soldiers. Huge sections of the wall and fort are still visible today. But what we can see above ground is just the tip of the iceberg. Geophysical surveys reveal a huge settlement surrounding the fort and even stretching into the land north of the wall. This year, a team of archaeology students from the University of Newcastle are lucky enough to be digging here, just outside the fortress walls. They want to investigate the relationship between this settlement and the fort itself.
Oh, Sarah.
And they've been recording their dig on one of our cameras.
This is the first of our dig diaries for Digging for Britain, the Alice Roberts show. So, behave, no language.
Finds from this trench have included a few Roman nails, some pottery.
I'm joining them to see what they think of the experience so far.
How much digging have you done before this?
What, before this trip?
Yeah.
None.
None? So
None.
this is
Yeah, it's my
first bit of
first one,
digging?
first experience, yeah.
Brilliant.
We found so many things already, literally all over the site. No matter where you dig, we're finding stuff anyway.
I found this earlier, tiny little glass blue bead.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Which was
That's
just
well
there.
spotted. So what's it like digging at a Roman fort on Hadrian's Wall?
A little bit daunting to begin with, but now it sort of just feels incredibly rewarding and an incredible privilege as well.
Also incredible is the double act of Roman expertise running this dig. Ian Haynes specialises in the archaeology of Roman frontiers, and Tony Wilmot has spent much of his career digging and studying Hadrian's Wall.
So tell me what we know about Hadrian's Wall and the forts and settlements along it, and tell me what we don't know.
It's salutary to remember that there are 15 words in classical literature concerning Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian was the first to build a wall 80 miles long to separate the Romans from the barbarians. That's it.
That's it, yeah.
Everything else we know comes from archaeology.
And that wasn't even a contemporary account either.
No, it wasn't. It was 200 years later. Yeah.
Parts of Bird Oswald were first excavated more than a century ago, and generations of archaeologists since have come to unearth more of its secrets. But there is still a lot to learn. Today, in the first major dig here for over a decade, Tony and Ian are investigating this mysterious area just outside the fort gates. This part of the site was last excavated by a giant of Roman archaeology, Sir Ian Richmond.
When was he digging?
1930.
Yeah.
They said in unison. And he came here, and there's one sentence that says, I came upon a good building, 20 feet square, with 3-foot wide walls going down 13 courses. And then he was flooded out and went home.
That's so
it. That's it.
tantalising. Yes.
No photograph, no drawing.
So you don't know where it is even?
Well, his survey plan was really good, and we linked it in with the geophysics, and it's this. Yep.
I mean, what do you think this building is, and what's happened to it over time?
The honest answer is we don't know what this building is. It's freestanding. We can't see that it is part of a greater complex, can we? No. At the moment. At the moment.
While the purpose of this particular building remains a mystery,
I want to appreciate what it's like when we get down into it.
it's so well preserved it helps me to imagine how imposing the rest of the stone fortress must have been when it was first built.
Looking at a wall like that and thinking about the difference in the landscape when the Romans arrive and how that must have felt actually for local people.
It must have been a really shocking experience, I think.
There's definitely a brutality to it. I mean, you can stand here and you can admire what the Romans are doing.
You can.
But on the other hand, you're very much faced with that oppressive nature of the Roman Empire.
In another trench right beside the gate of the fort and a road, more buildings have been uncovered, whose purpose is perhaps a little clearer.
And what have you got going on in this trench then? You've got two walls very close to each other. What is it?
Basically, it's two buildings. That's the alley between the two buildings. They're long, narrow buildings, as befit the sort of structures that would be facing onto the main street that runs out of the principal east gate, which is behind me here.
So what are these buildings then, do you know?
Well, narrow frontage onto the road, well placed to actually exploit the passing traffic that's coming through here, and the presence of gaming counters, fine wine, tablewares, all of these might suggest that this is a bar-type environment on the front.
Outside the fort's gates, roadside taverns run by entrepreneurial locals would serve off-duty soldiers food and drink.
Found that.
While useful cottage industries went on out the back.
It's like evidence of glass working.
Oh, like left part, like almost like a glass version of slag.
Yeah, imagine like it all dropping down. Like
And the students are finding plenty of evidence in this largely undisturbed Roman site.
Sort of Samian ware with a pattern there.
It's easy to get swept up in the simple joy of discovering something that hasn't seen the light of day for over 1600 years, like pieces of Samian pottery, which is often marked with a factory stamp.
Samian ware coming up.
And we got a stamp.
So you'll be able to find out where this is from?
Yes.
She's as bad as the students. Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Hey, it's great stuff.
When you go off to tea, I'm going to jump in and do it now. I'm not. I wouldn't do that.
But amongst all these discoveries, there is a star find.
And here we have Izzy
captured on our diary camera during excavation.
in the final stages of revealing our portable altar up against the wall.
This small altar was probably used by members of this household to pray for good health, wealth, or to fend off evil.
It's a very nicely made altar that seems to be in a small gap in the stones that maybe form part of the floor of the building. How many altars have you found in your archaeological career?
Just this one so far.
A portable altar perhaps shows the transient nature of life for some here on the northern frontier supporting the army. While the military presence is well documented, these new finds help me imagine what the bustling local community here might have looked like at the outermost edge of the Roman Empire.
And if we go back nearly 2,000 years, I'm just inside the fort, and all around me is this vast town. And it's great to draw it, to try to understand what I would have been looking at with the fort in the centre, and a town not just to one side, but around the back of me here, spreading off to the west as well, with the cemetery over there in the distance. And you're just getting a real feel for the Roman landscape up here on Hadrian's Wall, with this new generation of archaeologists cutting their teeth here, and there'll be generations more to come.
The Roman Empire's impact on Britain during almost 4 centuries of occupation can still be seen all across our landscapes. Rock-solid infrastructure left by a vast superpower that shaped much of Europe and beyond.
We get a real feel for the Roman sense of style and aesthetic from archaeology, looking at their buildings, their bathhouses, amphitheatres, opulent villas with beautiful mosaic floors, and from their gorgeous metalwork and their pottery and stone sculptures. But it's incredibly rare to find anything from that period carved in wood, and that's why this next find is so utterly extraordinary.
In York, inside a laboratory that specialises in preserving waterlogged archaeological finds, a special guest from Roman Britain has just arrived.
Here he is.
This wooden sculpture was uncovered during excavations along the HS2 route in Buckinghamshire. As archaeologists dug through the clay containing pieces of Roman pottery, they noticed an unexpected shape emerging.
Amazing, isn't he?
It's fantastic.
Diana Fernandez was on site as a colleague excavated the find.
It was literally just with his bare hands to try to take some mud out of the way. He said, oh, there's something here, there's wood. He was so excited that he could not stop just digging around and saying, it is a woodman, it is a woodman. And no one believed him. Everybody thought, no, this is just a degraded piece of wood. It was literally a carved figurine, and the excitement was big.
Head of Conservation at York Archaeology is Ian Panter.
I think it's extremely rare. I mean, this is the first one like this that I've seen in my sort of 40 years in archaeological conservation.
Incredibly, this figure is largely intact, having been buried in waterlogged sediment. Oxygen feeds the fungi that would cause the wood to rot away, but in this lab, they can stop that.
Basically, we put it into a tank with a water-soluble wax in it, leave it there for 6 to 12 months, and then put it into a machine called the freeze dryer, which takes out all the water. And so it's going to be at least a year before the item is dry and stable.
And we're incredibly lucky, as Ian has kindly brought this fragile figurine to the Digging for Britain tent.
I'm looking at it and thinking, is it quite wet enough?
And I'm getting an exclusive look at this amazing find.
Can we lift him out?
We can, yeah.
Before it disappears
Whisk that away.
to Ian's lab for preservation.
Wow.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is stunning, and I can see that actually we've got something really special. I mean, we've got a figure of a man wearing a toga.
That's right, yeah. It looks like within the carving you can see what looks to be a belt going around his waist, as it were.
And these lovely folds of the cloth. We can see how finely this has been carved, and I think the thing which really blows me away, this leg in particular, I mean, that knee, the shape of that knee and the shape of the muscles swelling, it's beautiful and it's very naturalistic.
It is, yeah.
Now, his face has suffered some damage.
Unfortunately, yes, his eyes and nose have gone. But we have got his neck, and it's so smooth there. It's such a beautiful bit of carving there.
Yeah. And there also seem to be some curls of hair.
That's right, yes, yes, yeah.
So do you have any idea of the date of it?
The style of it, just the tunics, the bare legs, everything about it. It's a well-carved figure. I think it's something that's come in with the Romans.
Yeah.
It transpires that there are small shards of pottery found in the same context.
Yeah.
And they're closely dated to about 40 to 70 AD.
Oh, so if it is Roman, it's very, very early Roman.
Well, it's nice to think it as coming in with the invasion fleet.
Yeah. Is there something to see on the other side?
There is. So if we go...
Oh.
It looks like to be running diagonally across his back. It may be a belt or maybe something for a sword or something.
It's been carved all the way round.
That's right, yes.
That is beautiful. Well, if it is Roman, who is it?
Who knows?
It's just amazing. I mean, potentially the figurine of a Roman god that's come over with the legions, protecting the legions, but also a symbol of oppression and terror for the Britons.
Yes, yes.
We'll return to Ian and his extraordinary work at the Preservation Lab in York later in the programme, where a much bigger, even more ancient wooden artefact is under investigation. Beyond the northern boundary of Roman Britain lay a vast, majestic and largely unconquered landscape. This was home to communities who, as far as the Romans were concerned, were uncivilised barbarians. The first history of Britain that we have was not written by Britons at all. It comes from literate Mediterranean civilizations, the Greeks and the Romans. And the Romans in particular tell us that the people who inhabited these islands were utterly barbaric. Now, that is so obviously propaganda, and we'd like to get a more objective view of those ancient societies. And that's precisely what archaeology can offer us. Our next dig is in northern Scotland, 35 miles east of Inverness, in the coastal town of Burghead. Here, a huge promontory juts out into the sea. The modern town was built in the early 1800s, and as it sprawled across these wild cliffs, workers uncovered evidence of an ancient fort, which is now thought to have been a major seat of power for the mysterious tribes called the Picts. Documentary evidence of the Picts is thin on the ground, but their name may have come from a custom of painting their skin. Picti means painted in Latin. The Picts dominated northeast Scotland. From Iron Age tribes grew a Pictish kingdom, thriving in the early medieval period. now a team from Aberdeen University is here on this headland fortress to learn more about Pictish culture. Dig leader is Gordon Noble.
So up here gives you a fantastic vantage point, so you can see the two forts here. We are standing on the middle rampart, which divides the lower forts from the upper fort.
This is how the site would have looked at its peak in around the 9th century. This reconstruction is based on new archaeology and a survey drawn up in 1793, before half the site was cleared to make way for the new town. With cliffs on 3 sides and huge ramparts all around, protecting 2 groups of dwellings and outhouses, we're seeing the Picts as a far more advanced society than those painted barbarians of some written history.
This must have been one of the key royal centres of the Northern Picts. And simply the resources needed to build, for example, the ramparts, suggest that whoever's living here is drawing on a very large population in order to build the fortifications here.
This year's dig aims to find evidence of how these Picts lived, their customs, lifestyles and diets. The team captured some of their early discoveries on our diary camera.
We've got a mace-headed pin made of animal bone, probably, about 1,200 years old. And yeah, fabulous find for today.
Oh, beauty. That's a coin.
Yes!
Amazing.
What do you think of this?
Well, quite exceptional, because it's actually gold. It's been gilded. It might have been for like some sort of fine kind of silk cloak or something like that, a really, really fine button, but it's so beautiful.
As the team carefully sift through the fine sand, the site's fragile nature is posing problems.
So we're in the upper fort here, in the upper citadel trench, and you can see it's like digging in a sand pit. And basically the whole fort is constructed on top of a series of sand dunes, which is fantastic for things like bone preservation, but has its own challenges in terms of excavation, trying to keep section edges not collapsing all the time. So it's very, very delicate, but it does produce amazing conditions for survival. You can see house floors and layers of occupation. We're just recording all these layers, taking samples for dating, taking samples for ancient DNA to tell us more about the everyday lives of the people who lived in Burghead Fort.
Good bone preservation means any artefacts made from bone remain remarkably intact and may be able to tell us more intimate details about these supposed barbarians, such as how seriously they took their grooming. As the very latest find shows.
I just said at lunchtime we need to find a comb now. And look at that. Fantastic. So it's a fragment of a double-sided comb there, made of bone. And I don't know if there's any known from mainland Scotland. There are very few, certainly, but that's hot off the press.
Well, that's got decoration on it too, so that's...
Oh, that's lovely.
These carefully made objects suggest a rethink is needed on how history has depicted the Picts. Gordon has brought some of the Burghead Fort discoveries into the Digging for Britain tent so I can have a closer look.
So Gordon, we've got your trench from this year and then the wider context of the headland where your trenches are placed. And I think you can see that as a very obvious place to have a fort. But a lot of the finds that you're getting are domestic.
Exactly. So it shows that this site was much more than a military outpost. And these are some of the objects from the site.
I mean, those bone pins are really beautiful. What would these have been used for, Gordon? Are they for hair or are they for attaching clothes?
In this case, these are very small examples, so they may well have been hair decoration. But this one's got a beautiful little mace head, all these little knobbly bits on the end of the pin.
It's really detailed, isn't it? And that one almost looks like a tiny thistle. Let's get the magnifying glass over.
Yeah. I mean, these are just straight out of the ground.
Oh, yes. It's something which is it's so functional, and it could be really plain. It doesn't need to be decorated, and yet it's got this, you know, just
just those touches of decoration.
Oh, it's incredible, and it shows the preservation levels we're getting in Burkhead. It's actually very unusual on a mainland Scottish site to get that kind of preservation.
And what's this odd little object?
So it doesn't look like much, but this is actually a hilt guard from a Pictish sword.
What's it made of?
It's made of iron, and it gives you an idea of the shape and form of Pictish swords, which would have been really quite small.
Well, the size of that, it's almost like a large dagger, really, isn't it?
A large dagger, essentially, yeah. Whereas Vikings had much larger swords, entirely different sets of weaponry, different battle tactics. And these were the challenges that the Picts had to face in the 9th and 10th century, in which Burkhead demises as a site.
And finally, Gordon, what are these mysterious-looking objects here, then?
Well, these are copper alloy objects. The one you picked up first is particularly fun. You've got to get this confirmed, but we think it might be a stylus. So for writing on wax tablets and the like.
Ooh, do we expect the Picts to be literate at this time?
Well, this is maybe one of the first pieces of evidence that suggests that the Picts were writing within secular settlements like Burkhead.
Yeah. And, you know, my question there, are the Picts literate? I think I've been infected by that view of the Picts as being slightly backward and barbaric, that view that we basically get from the Romans. But the archaeology is telling us a different story.
Exactly. It's those tiny bits of evidence that really piece together to create this much more sophisticated picture of the Picts and their society.
Yeah, we've underestimated them. Archaeology can bring a better understanding of ancient cultures and civilizations from the long-forgotten past, but it can also help us reconnect with more recent times, such as when a period of seismic change shook the north of Britain and the world, the Industrial Revolution. Our next dig takes us to the heartland of that revolution, just 10 miles from Manchester in Rochdale. As Britain was gearing up for the Industrial Revolution, Rochdale was leading the charge. And I'm walking this historic routeway that holds the key to this town's success. This is Packer Street, where since medieval times, pack horses loaded with goods could rest and merchants do business as they travelled the textile trading routes across the north. Later, industrial traders flocked to Rochdale, and so did their money. By the 1850s, Rochdale had developed into a prosperous mill town, and some of the wealth that it had created through the cloth manufacturing industry was poured into this imposing Victorian Gothic town hall. These decorations celebrate the role of the textile industry in Rochdale's success, and the town hall itself is often claimed to be one of the country's most spectacular municipal buildings. But there's less evidence of the lives of the men and women whose hard work created this wealth.
Oh wow, Reggie, look at that!
This year, though, thanks to a £250 million regeneration project, a community dig beneath the car park is a unique opportunity to investigate the lives of Rochdale's workers during this transformative era.
What's this? That's a bit of tarmac.
Well done, Reg, found a bit of tarmac.
Graham Mottershead is the site manager. Graham, what have you found so far? What levels have you got down to?
Well, Packer Street is interesting because the wool merchants would have had their houses and their warehouses along here on Packer Street.
Right.
And we think that the remains of some of these houses is what we're digging up here.
The team are unearthing brick walls from these workers' houses that are so well preserved they look like they might have been made last year. Do you know when this wall was built?
I think that's late 18th century. From the bricks, and particularly with the mortar in it, you can actually see some lime mortar down at the bottom. So this would have been maybe the 1770s, 1780s.
It's kind of taking us back to the beginning of the industrial age in Rochdale.
Absolutely, yes. It's right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. This would have been built. You know, there's row of houses here.
As industry exploded, the population and demand for housing did as well. So these houses were transformed, and not for the better.
So if I step up here, what am I in now?
These don't look quite as well built as that.
No.
That's what you've got here. You've had these formerly quite nice, affluent houses. The houses get broken up into smaller houses to accommodate a lot more people, because you've got a lot more mills, you've got a lot more factories, so you need the houses for the people that are coming in to work there. So they just start to decline. And I think the things we're looking at here, like this floor, is a bit of a mishmash of different types of bricks, stones. There's even the odd bit of a cobble.
Just using whatever you've got to hand, isn't it, to make that floor surface?
Yeah, exactly.
There are features outside each of these small houses that have become accidental time capsules.
Here we've got outside privies.
These little square brick-built chambers.
Yes.
That's what they are.
Yeah, yeah.
As outdoor toilets like this fell out of use, they became convenient rubbish dumps for residents.
There's probably more finds come out of these sort of 3 little chambers than have come out of almost anywhere else on the site. Things like drinks bottles, plates, teacups, you name it, just coming out of these. Combined with everything else, it gives us a real picture of what life was like.
You can't argue with this.
No.
This is kind of this is like everyday life, what people were doing, it's just there.
The thing I love about local community digs like this one is how they give archaeologists of all ages the chance to get excited about the past.
We don't know what it is.
Oh, do you know what? I think that is the bottom of a handle of a pot.
Could be like a handle of a teacup. Yeah,
It could be, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, to think about the different ways that people lived in the past and how their houses might have been different from our houses.
The pottery, when it's thicker, it means it's more cheap.
Yeah.
When it's like quite thin, it means it's more expensive and
Yeah.
more posh.
What do you think about archaeology, though? I mean, I know you've only been doing it for a few hours, but would you like to do it as a job?
Yes. Yeah.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yes.
Also here on their first dig are Sandra and Julie.
Do you think it's kind of connecting you with local history in Rochdale then?
Yeah.
I mean, you're from Rochdale.
My granddad and my grandma used to work in the mills around here, so to me it's a bit of a connection.
Yeah.
I've lost them all now, so it's a bit like, wow. But yeah, it's just lovely sort of having a bit of knowledge that you think you know everything, and actually you know nothing.
Yeah.
Until you start going underneath.
Yeah.
With the dawn of the steam age and the arrival of railways in the mid-1800s, the residents of Rochdale could enjoy better connections to what was happening right across the country.
Jenny, Yvonne, somebody said you found something really exciting.
Yeah.
What is it?
It is a clay pipe. I'll show you.
You found lots of clay pipes.
Oh
though.
yeah, I mean there's tons of them in here, but this one's really beautiful. Yeah, I mean suspected dinosaur.
Oh, that is amazing.
Clay tobacco pipes were commonplace before ready-made cigarettes arrived at the end of the 19th century, but many were featureless and disposable.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
I love that. Is it a well-known design?
Well, in 1851 they had like the Great Exhibition down in London, and like the design of this dinosaur looks a lot like what they thought dinosaurs were when they did that. So
it does look a bit like the Crystal Palace dinosaurs. I wonder if it's a souvenir then that somebody's brought back from London.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting if it was.
I think that's got to be the star find of the day, if not the week, if not the month.
As well as faster travel and big business, the Industrial Revolution also fostered an entrepreneurial spirit in ordinary workers. Archaeologist Ashley Brogan has gathered evidence of this, found amongst this crowded terrace.
So that says S. Casson, Rochdale.
Yes. So we actually know exactly who that is. So that's Samuel Casson, and he lived in 1851 at 13 Packer Street.
Really?
And he was about 20 years old at the time, and his mother was a ginger beer maker, and he took up the business as well. So that's directly come from his house where he's making ginger beer.
So it would have been in his house that he was
in the yards at the
it.
back, which is exactly what we've got on site.
Yeah. Isn't that lovely to find a complete bottle like that? So that says J. Casson's Superior Pub.
Yeah.
That one says. Not any old ginger bear.
No. Jay was James Casson, and that was his dad. His dad was originally a woolen worker, and they would have been quite poor on this street, so the mum took up ginger beer making to sort of help with, you know, the household income.
Yeah.
And then they seemed to go down that route. And by the 1870s, you know, they'd moved out and they had like 9 employees, and it was a really growing business.
Really?
And we've actually had volunteers on site remember drinking Casson's drinks, you know, years ago, decades ago. So yeah, it's really closely linked with Rochdale and the community here as well.
Oh, that's such a fantastic story, and how,
Yeah.
you know, lovely to kind of see the emergence
Yeah.
of this business that then flourished.
Exactly, yeah.
That's fantastic, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
This is definitely something.
This dig is helping the community here to remember the small parts that Rochdale played in that huge revolution that changed the world. But it's also revealing the power of archaeology, I think especially for the children, that they can learn about history at school, they can read about it in books, but here it becomes real, it becomes tangible, something they can touch, something they can hold in their hands. The Industrial Revolution brought with it many innovations and scientific advancements, but it also accentuated the gap between the rich and the poor, and nowhere perhaps as obviously as in Ireland. Part of the United Kingdom since 1801, Ireland's population was booming and depended on a staple high-yield crop, potatoes. And then in 1845, a deadly fungus, Phytophthora infestans, swept through and wiped out a third of the potato harvest, plunging Ireland into a state of famine.
The scale of the suffering was horrific, and over 1 million people died. But it's the way the British government chose to help those in need that is the story of this dig. We travelled to what is now Northern Ireland, just a few miles outside the county town of Enniskillen. This dig is an attempt to uncover evidence of work done as part of an 1846 government welfare scheme that resulted in the building of new roads, which later became known as the Famine Roads. Eileen Murphy of Queen's University Belfast is the co-director of this pioneering dig.
To the best of our knowledge, this is the first time a famine road has been excavated on the island. And I think it's because they're not formally recognised as monuments. This is one of the largest stretches of roads. It goes for about 1.5 miles. And we decided this would be a wonderful place to have a community-based excavation.
Building these roads was a seemingly misguided attempt by the British government to support the starving population by offering employment where hard labour would earn them a meagre wage.
People died on the roads because of the cold weather conditions. So it was counterproductive, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the fact that they were starving didn't help either.
The dig aims to find evidence of the lives of the starving workers who built this road. But as they uncover the thick clay foundations, the team get an insight into the hardship endured.
To make a road in a landscape like that, you would need a lot of clay to kind of raise up your road. So we think that's what they did. They brought in the clay and they built it up into this platform.
We've been digging this clay out the last couple of days and it's been hard enough. Doing it in the middle of winter when you're starved half to death.
And it's pure clay.
And it's pure clay and you're right for fever.
We were expecting to find at the top a surface with lots of nice compact stones, but when we dug down, it soon became apparent what we found is the enabling works, the evidence of what came before, the actual final road was put down on top of the surface. So we think basically the road wasn't completed.
The archaeology is revealing the heartbreaking truth about this scheme. Many of these roads were left unfinished and unusable by those too hungry to build them.
You know the expression money for old rope? Yeah. OK, so that comes from the workhouse where women were actually tasked to unwind rope.
Catherine Scott from Fermanagh County Museum is on site to help give the dig context.
So the famine road and the system of famine roads, they are literally directionless, you know, and they go nowhere. If you look at the map at the time, there was a road running parallel to this very road. So they have no real function.
Despite the obvious futility of asking the starving to build roads to nowhere, it's a largely forgotten part of Irish famine history.
You know, I only live about 10 miles from here and I did not know there was a famine road here.
People talk about the silence. That was very loud because nobody spoke about the famine, nobody spoke about their experience and what happened to them and their families. But we know, for example, in County Fermanagh, we lose just over 25% of the population. That's huge.
The decisions that led to this scheme were being made 400 miles away in London. As the scale of the potato crop failure became clear and famine loomed, solutions were debated in Parliament. Historian Onyeka Nubia is in London to investigate.
So I want to know what led to that disaster of the famine road. I want to know what the policy was that could mean that human beings would suffer for the sake of a philosophy. I've come to Lincoln's Inn, where the library holds a comprehensive set of Hansard. These are the official records of parliamentary debates from 1803 onwards. This edition from 1846, at the height of the famine, details a speech by the famous Irish MP and activist, Daniel O'Connell. The title is Famine and Disease in Ireland. It was certain that there was a fearful prospect of a most calamitous season before the people of Ireland. And then he goes on, but the condition of the people, especially of the agricultural population, these are the ordinary people, all accounts agreed in describing them as in a state of actual starvation. Daniel O'Connell is one of the few Catholic Irish MPs. He's trying to prevent the extermination of a people, his people, and he's imploring the British government that has control of Ireland to do something about it. O'Connell seeks aid for famine victims, but the government and the opposition are opposed to this. Their philosophy is to reject all requests for handouts. Simple charity was out of the question, so Robert Peel suggested a compromise. On March the 9th, 1846, right in the midst of the what we now call the Irish potato famine. So this is Robert Peel, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and its empire, and we see what he has to say. In justice to the poorer classes, to those classes who are in a state of destitution, it would, I think, be infinitely more agreeable to their feelings that they should be enabled to earn their subsistence by honest labour than by any other mode. What a remarkable thing to say. He's saying that he knows the working people in Ireland. He knows their feelings. And he believes that their feelings are that they want to work for a living. And he's also saying, from a philosophical perspective, that if relief is given to those ordinary people without working, that is worse, psychologically, socially, culturally, politically, than that population dying from starvation. These ideas, of course, weren't new to the Victorians, but the way that they were implemented, getting the poor to work, on roads to nowhere, on activities that would not produce tangible, beneficial results, simply to enforce a philosophical point and to make a statement that if you were poor, you had to work your way out of your poverty. It is utterly deplorable.
Back in Northern Ireland at the Famine Road dig, Eileen's team assess their findings.
Normally on an archaeological excavation, you expect to find something, you know, because we go after, you know, the discarded refuse, the stuff that people break and throw away, and that's priceless to us. But, you know, in my mind, before we started off, I thought you might find a little bit of broken crockery or maybe bits of clay pipes, but we found nothing.
Col Murphy is dig co-director.
And I suppose in some ways we shouldn't be too surprised, because the people who would be coming here wouldn't have had anything to bring with them. The truth of the matter is, from the historic accounts, most of them have sold off their good clothes as well, so they don't even have coats. They're in absolute poverty.
More than 2 million people died or emigrated as a result of famine, its effects reverberating for decades to come. And this dig's empty finds tray somehow speaks volumes about the hardship endured during that dark period of Irish history.
Archaeologists can reconstruct ancient landscapes, sometimes based on very subtle traces. Whole villages just from their foundations, wooden buildings just from the holes in the ground where posts once stood. But occasionally there's a quirk of preservation, which means that something that shouldn't have survived does. And that can be a real gift and provide us with an incredible revelation.
We return to York and Ian Panter's specialist preservation lab.
This must be one of the biggest things you've got here at the moment.
It's one of the biggest things, yes, and one of the heaviest.
In this tank, a huge chunk of an ancient tree trunk has been kept in underwater storage since it was first discovered in 2018.
Wow. It's a bit of a beast, isn't it? I mean,
it is, isn't it?
Huge.
This is a Bronze Age coffin, discovered along with human remains and an axe during landscaping at a golf club near Grimsby. Archaeologist Hugh Wilmot was working with students nearby and was called in to oversee the recovery of the coffin.
Well, I mean, it's just amazing to see it out of the water, all cleaned up. It's kind of fresh now, it's not covered in mud.
We're beginning to see some of the tool marks, the tools that we used to make it.
It's really a near unique object.
Yeah, it is.
Today, for the first time, Hugh is seeing the wood cleaned of the waterlogged mud that had prevented it from decomposing ever since it was buried around 4,000 years ago.
You can see the end of it here, which you can see it's clearly made out of a single piece of wood, a hollowed out tree trunk. And you can see the wood grain in there and the sort of the rays of the oak. And then they've hollowed it out, they've gouged out the coffin. So it's made from a single piece of oak. And that's really quite special. And you can see some of the tool marks from where they've been scooping out the contents to sort of make the container. So it's really quite an impressive piece of woodworking, not just the sort of size of it, but the amount of effort that's gone into creating it.
The wooden coffin was just one part of an elaborate burial covered over with a mound of gravel. The archaeologists also recovered evidence that inside the coffin, the dead body had been carefully laid out on a soft bed of moss and leaves.
I think this is clearly a special burial. Not everyone's going to be afforded this kind of burial right. It would take a lot of effort from the community just to even construct the coffin and then put the mound over the top. So we're looking at somebody who is obviously clearly very important to this society.
The man in this grave was buried with a beautiful, decorative axe, complete with its handle, one of only 12 to survive intact in the country. It's another clue as to who this person was in life.
It's very small, and it's probably a more symbolic thing. The head of the axe is kind of made from a limestone that actually has fossilised coral in it, so it seems to be deliberately chosen as a decorative stone. So perhaps it acted as some symbol of the authority of the person buried in the coffin.
It's expected to take up to 2 years to fully preserve and protect the coffin from harmful fungi, all part of a long and unexpected archaeological journey.
Log coffins are very, very rare. I mean, this is kind of once in a career kind of thing. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I'm not going to likely to see one again. So it's really a sort of a bit of a highlight for me.
Archaeology helps us learn how our towns and cities have changed throughout the centuries. And luckily for archaeologists, that change is an ongoing process.
Redevelopment in our cities often involves clearing cemeteries, and archaeological excavation represents the most respectful way of treating those human remains, whilst allowing us to find out more about the people themselves. We've had some fantastic burial archaeology from the southeast and the Midlands recently, and now archaeologists in the north are getting the same opportunity.
Our final dig takes us back to Scotland, where a few miles from Edinburgh lies the port town of Leith. Here, a new tram line linking Leith to the city centre of Edinburgh is under construction. The route follows the main roads, which have to be excavated, but one stretch of road was built over part of a huge medieval burial ground. For the last decade, a team from Guard Archaeology have been excavating and analysing hundreds of graves.
We've got one up there, one here, and those are...
John Lawson is the city archaeologist.
What we have is a general population of Leith during the period of 13 to 1650. All ages, all social classes, from people buried in simple shrouded burials right the way through to coffin graves from the 14th century.
The skeletons are revealing much about the health of Leith's residents and how long they lived during a 400-year period when life was often short and hard.
Likely 10 to 12 years of age.
I mean, we're not looking at an elite burial ground. We're looking at our society that captures everything from the poorest right the way through to your sort of richer merchants and everything in between.
And I've just found here a small copper alloy shroud pin.
The team have recorded their discoveries on our diary cameras.
With children, they have a lot more teeth that are just sitting up in the gums. So what we've got here is a juvenile.
They've got no teeth on the lower mandible. The tooth sockets are completely healed, so that's called alveolar resorption. So they lost all their teeth during life and lived for quite a while without any.
The excavation is thorough. Every scrap of coffin wood, loose nail and fragment of surviving textile is recorded, providing detailed insights into burial practices as they evolved in Leith.
And all of these so far have had the hands behind the pelvis. Okay. This one, and this one. And the rest that are true east-west have had the hands like this.
It's been a shroud burial, so it's been buried in a cloth, and it's normally one shroud pin. But so far on this burial, there's been 7 shroud pins.
This part of the burial ground seems to have gone out of use around 1650. In the more prosperous centuries that followed, many of the roads and houses of Leith were built. Now the team are finding evidence that some of this burial ground stood in the way of progress once before.
There's a massive Victorian sewer which serves most of Leith, running straight the way down the site here. Given what we found, we estimate they probably removed about maybe 300 to 400 burials. We know they did it, but we don't have the records.
There may not be any official documents, but the team have uncovered evidence of large-scale relocation of skeletons.
What we have here is a charnel pit, which is basically a man-made pit with human remains that have been put in. The charnel classes as human remains that are no longer associated with a full skeleton. We reckon there's more than 20 individuals in this set place. The reason why they've come in could be from when the workers may have found these remains and decided to put them behind the new wall to keep them in sacred ground, hollow ground.
Faced with archaeological evidence like this, it's hard to learn much about how these people lived and died. But complete skeletons can tell us much more, like this one, a person who had clearly been the victim of a traumatic event.
So it looks like they've been hit with something during life. This blow hasn't killed them, and we can tell that because of this rounded edge here. So this is bone regrowth after this injury, and it kind of looks like, because we've got such a rounded edge on it, it looks like they've gone in, so doctors have gone in to remove the bone and to clean up this edge, and that's caused it to regrow in this sort of circular pattern.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it?
It's really interesting.
Just a story about how this person would have survived and the medical care that they had, and we just don't think about it. What, maybe in the 13 or 1400s?
Yeah.
John has brought that fascinating skeleton to the Digging for Britain tent, so I can get a closer look at the injury.
John, thank you for bringing in one of the skeletons from this dig. How many skeletons, how many burials did you uncover in the end?
385. The total count may go up, so we're just through that post-excavation process at the moment.
And we're seeing one of these lethers here. So tell me about this skeleton then, John.
She's probably in her mid-20s, and she obviously had a very large bumped head. You can actually see evidence of blunt force trauma with the sort of cracks coming up, 2 lines coming up the side of her skull here.
And over here. Looking at this, it's more likely to have been the result of a violent injury. And we certainly know it wasn't a murder because she survived this, and she's survived this by at least a couple of years because this is all healed.
It's amazing, and to survive that long with all the injuries and without modern medicine.
And you've had reconstructions done, haven't you?
We have, yeah.
With a skull in such good condition, a reconstruction artist can put muscles, skin and hair back, and we can see the face of this young woman before she was horrifically injured.
We're looking at somebody who was alive in the 15th century.
Yeah, probably the middle part of the 15th century.
And I think it's really important to see faces like this because, you know, I look at a lot of skeletons and a lot of skulls and you see them as individuals, but you're actually seeing them as people when you do the reconstruction. Yeah. And it literally puts flesh on the bones and it allows you to think about that human experience of going through that horrific injury.
And I think that's part of that. Our project is trying to put us today back into the footsteps of the people in the past to show they're not different. They are ourselves, you know.
I mean, that's why we do archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah.
We dig for the gods that leave no bones for ships unseen.
The challenges this year have been unprecedented, and yet it's been such a memorable journey.
This is Richmond Castle, this beach in West Wales. I love the Mendip Hills.
The beauty of our landscape, the variety of digs.
Oh, look at this.
And the wealth of finds.
Absolutely lovely.
Has been breathtaking.
Some really exciting evidence has just emerged.
I found a couple of brooches, I found a ring.
Well spotted. Keep going.
What on earth is that?
Brain-eating snails.
Bizarre.
Look.
I can't believe you found that on your first day digging. It almost looks like a hand.
Wow.
That's not medieval. Could it be Roman? It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? What a mystery to have solved.
Oh my goodness. I'm quite emotional seeing this. It's just amazing. I can't wait to do it all again.
Coins to the eyes and keys for the door. Fortress, great goods chamber too. Abandoned villages, rumors of war. We dig for pattern, read the room. And so we're glued to who we are and where we were and why we were. The inheritors of knowledge now and ancestors to those who still might dig.
Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, all across the country, our archaeologists dig, dive, and explore their way down.
Oh my God.
some of the best stuff you're ever going to see.
Oh, wow.
Look at this.
Here we go, arrowhead.
Searching for fresh discoveries.
Hypercost.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
It's been there for 5,500 years.
And unearthing fascinating objects.
Fantastic decoration. Any musket balls yet, Aaron? Wow, look at that.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw that is the epic story of our islands.
And I'm down.
This year, I visit digs in some extraordinary locations and solve mysteries using cutting-edge tools.
Oh, this is wonderful.
I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
So you can see how that gives you a really unique signature.
That's right. Excellent.
So they were using food as a type of bribery.
Who dig deeper to answer the questions raised by the finds.
That's how he got away with it.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best discoveries into our tent.
Yeah, it's a cracking find.
For up-close analysis.
So it's completely unique impression. That's wonderful.
Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time, with so many brilliant digs to explore, we're headed back to the south of Britain. In Wiltshire, we dig down into a mysterious chamber that may hold ancient secrets.
It's weird. What is it?
I mean, that's the big question.
Off the Sussex coast, we hunt down the identity of a sunken ship that sparked a war with the Dutch.
We've got cannons. We've got big cannons.
And in Cornwall, a huge, newly discovered army camp redraws the map of the Roman invasion.
What they've done is really quite impressive to go, we're Rome, this is it.
But our first dig leads us to a fascinating period of British history known as the Anarchy. Following the conquest of 1066, many of England's new Norman rulers built castles for protection from their new subjects and each other. Some of these structures remain impressive today, but if you look hard, you can also find the smaller homes that they lived in when travelling or hunting. Our investigation is taking place in what was once a medieval hunting park in South Gloucestershire, near a small village called Lower Hazel. Here, hidden in the woods, are the ruins of some very old buildings. I've heard that they could provide rare evidence of a skirmish or siege during a medieval civil war. The site's owner, John, got the dig up and running when he had a hunch that something special lay here beneath his trees. So, John, how did this all start? You bought this woodland. How did you imagine that there might be some archaeology here?
Well, it all started with looking at an old map which said site of chapel. But this, obviously, it was far too big to be a chapel.
In 2011, John invited a local archaeology group along, who've slowly but surely uncovered the ruins we see today.
If it's a dry Wednesday, you'll probably find us here.
This year, the volunteers are joined by a team from the University of Bristol. And the project's led by our very own Digging for Britain medieval expert, Stuart Pryor. Stuart, it's great to be visiting you to talk about one of your sites, because I know this is a site that you've been absolutely itching to come and dig. Why is it so fascinating? What's the big mystery that you want to get to the bottom of?
So this is one of the sites where it goes right through what's known as the Anarchy period. So it's a 12th century site.
The Anarchy was a long, chaotic civil war that followed the death of King Henry I in 1135. His daughter Matilda was in line to succeed him as queen, but her cousin Stephen had other ideas.
Empress Matilda and King Stephen are fighting over the English throne, and we know that In this period, there's 19 years of hell, literally, because you've got a continual battle going backwards and forwards across this country. And this is a perfect site for, you know, one of those attacks from King Stephen's men.
So prove it to me. Prove to me that we're looking at a site that was something that could have been important during this anarchy period.
Well, to start with, we'll go with the coins, right? So you've got Henry I,
Yeah.
okay? We've got a King Stephen coin, okay? And Henry II at the end there, halfpenny. So that's pre-anarchy, post-anarchy, and Stephen himself.
Right in the middle of the
Right
anarchy.
in the middle, absolutely, yeah. So
Great.
we've got Norman spur, prick spur, so just to prick the source of the side to make them go faster.
So there are definitely Normans here with horses.
Yep. Then you've got things like the butt of the spear. Yeah, so basically, no, it could be used for hunting, but it can also
Yeah.
be used for warfare.
The top and the bottom.
Top and the bottom of the spear, yeah. And then we've got some arrowheads.
Yeah.
So this is a fairly early one, about 11th century, and then, you know, this goes into the sort of 13th century.
So you've got objects which are suggesting to you that this was a
High
hunting
status,
lodge.
it's a high status Norman hunting lodge, essentially,
Yeah. Enough evidence has been gathered at the dig to recreate in a model how this lodge might have looked in the early 12th century, just before the anarchy. But the big question is, what happened to the lodge? Did it fall into ruin through neglect? Was it demolished? Or was it attacked? Stuart and his colleague Costas have found evidence that might help provide an answer. This looks like a wall which has, you know, I mean, it's a horizontal wall, isn't it? It's a wall that's stood up and then it's just fallen down like that. I can see the courses in it. I don't know if this is a question you can even answer. Does this look like a building which has gradually fallen down, or do you think this is more of an abrupt event?
Because the courses are still in place, it looks like an abrupt event. So for us, it's another evidence that this building has been brutally disrupted during the anarchy period.
Brilliant. So you've got some in situ from the exact period you're interested in. While this collapsed wall hints at intentional demolition, it doesn't tell us how or why this happened. Was the building simply abandoned and falling into ruin, or was it destroyed during a siege? Do you think that it was attacked during the anarchy?
Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. Because over the last few years, the volunteers have found two pieces of evidence that really convince me. They are these two impressive stone balls that I've got in my hand here. I'm convinced that these are trebuchet balls that were launched through the roof of the structure in the 12th century in that attack.
And whereabouts on the site were these found?
Actually, in the Norman Hunting Lodge itself.
Over there?
Over there,
Yeah.
And basically, they were lobbed through the roof and sat there since the 12th century, waiting to be discovered by our archaeologists. They've even got impact damage on them, and they've actually hit the building.
So you're convinced that those are weapons?
Well, either
this
that
place
or
has been
a
attacked?
fancy paperweight from the 11th century, or 12th century.
After this period of destruction, the archaeologists can see that rebuilding was happening. People were still here. One of the students has some dateable evidence.
We've actually found, in this area, we found some pottery. It's ham green, with a ham green glaze. So this is from about 1250, maybe onwards from there.
Other sherds of ham green pottery found here have been expertly reassembled to show what a splendid jug this must have been.
And we found other pottery that dates to around the 11th century below that, so.
So it's all kind of matching up with that kind of idea of 11th, 12th century dates then?
Right,
Yeah.
right around the dates we're looking for.
Yeah, right around the anarchy if it's 12th century. No pottery later than the 13th century has been found, which tells us there was probably no further occupation here. And so this ruin became a time capsule of those two medieval centuries. This is such an intriguing site. It is totally one of those sites that you arrive at and it all looks very clear. It all looks as though it's nicely laid out on the surface, very obvious, and
Then I started to talk to Stuart and Costas and look more carefully, and it's much more complicated. But there's still so much more to learn here, and I think the team will be digging here for years to come.
We dig for the gods that leave no bones, for ships sailed sunken sea, the vessel aloft in the sky is stones, the famine road and the merchant's quay.
The English Channel has seen a huge amount of action over the centuries. Not only does it divide us from France, our historical sparring partner, but it also formed a crucial trade and access route for dozens of northern European countries, amongst them what is now the Netherlands. And in fact, for almost half a century, we were fighting the Dutch Navy on a regular basis in these narrow waters. The struggle to control trade routes and overseas colonies was behind 3 17th century naval conflicts that became known as the Anglo-Dutch Wars. Our next dig is located on the seabed of the English Channel, a few miles south of Eastbourne, at the site of an extraordinary shipwreck.
Alex, yes. Terry, yes. Peter, yes. OK, we are all present and correct.
In 2019, a team led by Mark Beattie-Edwards of the Nautical Archaeology Society started diving on a recently discovered wreck that is potentially one of the most important ships sunk during battles with the Dutch.
Clear the north bridge following. Over.
First thing we've got to try and work out is what is it? You know, to prove something's importance or significance in our history, we need to put a name on that, and that identity is only going to come out from the evidence that's on the seabed.
The first hint of the wreck emerged from scans of the seabed. The team investigated and soon confirmed suspicions that this was a previously unrecorded and very substantial post-medieval shipwreck. Since then, they've created this 3D model of the wreck. Today, the team hope to record and recover evidence that may finally solve the mystery of the ship's identity.
The site extends about 30 metres long by about 10 metres wide. It's definitely a wooden ship, and we've got cannons. We've got big cannons. I mean, so far we've counted 31 cannons, which is either a very heavily armed merchant ship or it's a warship.
I've got 40 bar.
Depending on the tide, the wreck is around 30 metres deep, so the team must limit dive time or risk the potentially fatal decompression sickness known as the bends.
So 32 metres to the bottom. We'll get them to tell you what their plan is going to be. 40 minutes should be on the surface, 60 minutes should be on the surface. Okay, Dave? Ready?
The visibility today is exceptional. There's enough light to see and film the wreck. Among the team who discovered the ship is Graham Irwin, though for him, this clear water makes no difference.
I've had no useful sight for roughly 15 years, so I use my hands as my eyes. For the rest of my diving, I do it by guesswork. Feeling the cannon, it is nice to touch a piece of history that you know has been sunk for several hundred years.
Layers of silt and sand have protected the wreck from the wave action that can cause erosion.
bronze guns are in fabulous condition. You can read at least 2 of them.
One is embossed with a name. This Cornelis was a master gunsmith in Rotterdam. It's a strong hint that this is a Dutch warship. And on a second cannon, as well as a surprised resident, there's another clue. A date stamp.
So we know that gun was made in 1670, so our shipwreck cannot be any earlier than 1670.
Confusingly, this ship was also carrying a heavy cargo of massive stone blocks, too big to be recovered. More portable are pieces of ceramics and smaller stacks of dressed stone. The team are also recovering personal artefacts.
Every find that's made is potentially important, but every now and then you're able to recover objects that were probably owned and used by individuals that we can get a little bit closer to, trying to understand what their life was like on this ship.
Maximum dive time has been reached. The team slowly resurface.
Yeah. Every dive's a good dive when you come back, isn't it? Beautiful.
And get a good look at the objects they've recovered.
Oh, it's bigger than I remember it being in the water. Wow, okay.
The decorative bowl could be part of the ship's first aid kit.
It looks like a medicine kind of set.
Yeah.
Amazing, beautiful.
It's possible we've managed to find the spot where the stores of the surgeon were.
They've also retrieved larger bowls from what they believe was once the galley.
These are nice, Sarah. So these are eating bowls. If you're on board a ship, all your food is going to just wash off the side of your plate. So even a little dip like this means all your food can go in here.
A ship of this size would have had a crew of around 50. And there's been sobering evidence that at least some of them went down with the ship.
We have found small single pieces of human remains. So we have to be aware that this is a last resting place for these sailors and treat them with dignity and treat them with care.
Today's finds and discoveries go back to the labs, where it's hoped that the identity of this mystery ship will become clearer. The results are in. So Mark has dived into the Digging for Britain tent with a shipment of finds and the latest news on this intriguing wreck.
Mark, what an exciting site to have discovered. And we've got some finds here, obviously, but take me through that scan, that photogrammetry.
Yes, this is a virtual tour we can take you on. And the first thing you'll notice right in the middle of the site are these big stone blocks.
Yeah.
And the biggest ones are 3.75 metres.
Oh, they're huge.
So where these now lie on the seabed is probably where they were in the ship. So probably the middle.
You can see that other heavy objects, like the cannon, have moved around.
Yes.
So are we looking at a Dutch warship, then?
It's confusing, isn't it? We've got all this merchant stuff, but as well as the stone, we've got also this pile of stuff.
Tiles?
Yeah, very good. Tiles that are either for a floor or maybe for a wall. These are 2 that we've recovered, and there are hundreds of them.
And where does it come from?
It comes from Italy. This is what's called Carrara marble.
The famous marble quarry.
Indeed.
All those Renaissance sculptures.
Michelangelo's favourite.
Yeah, but why is this on a warship?
We think that it's likely that what we've got here is a warship that is carrying cargo at the same time, but we've got a few other objects here that will perhaps shed some light and give us some clues as well. This is Italian tin-glazed maiolica, so this is nicely decorated.
It is. I can see a pair of legs here.
A pair of legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a stack of plates, probably about 10 plates, as if they were in a box or a crate.
What about these objects?
The bigger bowl with the little ornate handles, ridges on the side, is a bleeding bowl. used by the surgeon,
Yeah.
the barber surgeon on board for bloodletting. So having surgeons' implements, utensils, is probably indicative of military. We've got the military guns, but we've got this commercial cargo. So we're looking for a Dutch warship that was coming back from Italy, loaded up with cargo.
Yeah.
We think we've narrowed it down to one engagement, one battle that took place at sea in 1672, and we think we know the ship itself because only one ship sank. The one ship is the Klein Hollandia, which means Little Holland.
And this is it?
And this is it. This is as drawn by Van der Velde the Elder, so we can actually visualise what it looked like. And we know that over 100 Dutch sailors died when it sank, and up to 26 English sailors died.
I think this is utterly extraordinary that you've got this wreck and then you've managed to narrow it down to one ship, and it's one ship that you've actually got a picture of as well. But that really is set against the context of it, the conflict which leads to that ship being wrecked, and also the human tragedy that it represents.
The Klein Hollandia was sunk in an encounter between a squadron of English warships and a Dutch convoy. Details of the engagement were relayed by naval officers and an account quickly published in a pamphlet. Our historical investigator, Onyeka Nubia, is taking a close look at the text.
So I'm always rather concerned when you see an account that claims to be a true and perfect account. But I'm interested to see what it says, and I'm interested what it tells us about this moment in history. It has a date in it which says the 13th of March, 1672. Sir Robert Holmes, he's in charge of the English fleet, with a squadron of 5 ships cruising about the Isle of Wight, met with the Dutch Smyrna fleet consisting of about 50 sail. So the key thing here is that these events are happening in peacetime, 2 weeks before the Third Anglo-Dutch War began. And therefore it is a remarkable account. So the author says, shot to make them strike and lower their topsails, upon which refusal our ships shot ball, this is cannonballs, through and through them, upon which they lowered their topsails, but yet refused to strike, upon which the fight began. And in fact, he goes on, the Dutch throwing overboard a great many of their heaviest goods to lighten them, 20 of their merchantmen, and it continues that the Dutch are actually trying to get away from the English. They don't want to fight. They're not at war with England at this moment. It speaks about the 5 ships taken are loaden chiefly with several sorts of rich silks and other Turkish commodities. This was an attempt to gain control not only of the goods on these ships, but the trade that was related to those goods. It says the loss of the Dutch, I think, fleet was very considerable, not only as to the loss of men, but of goods thrown overboard. There was at least 50 bales of silk taken up by our vessels, who went off from this port the next day. And it is thought that they could not lose less than 1,000 men in this engagement. So it's talking about the loss of life as if it was a footnote, that it's something to be written in the margins, and that the more important thing are the bales of silk. This account explains exactly why that shipwreck is so important. And it helps us to understand that it could have been the catalyst that led to war.
Despite stiff competition, few other counties in the south can match Dorset's rolling hills for vivid evidence of our history. But our next dig takes place at a feature that was, until fairly recently, completely hidden in Dorchester, Dorset's county town.
Dorchester is famous for being the birthplace of one of England's finest romantic novelists, Thomas Hardy, and he came back here and created this house, Max Gate. And there's an archaeological dig happening in the gardens. Hardy could afford to build his dream home thanks to hit novels such as Far From the Madding Crowd and Tess of the D'Urbervilles. But he had little idea the land he'd bought sat right on top of the major archaeology now being uncovered. It's all looked after by the National Trust, and Martin Papworth is leading the dig in the paddock at the back. Martin, what are you expecting to find here in the gardens of Max Gate?
Well, I'm hoping to find a whole series of pits forming an arc right around this field and the garden next door.
Why do you think it's here?
Because back in the 1980s, there was a road scheme just over here, and the road went right through a semicircle of this enclosure. And if you joined all the dots up, it should come right through this place here, in this garden.
What is it?
So around Stonehenge there is an earthwork. That bank and ditch is Middle Neolithic. It's the same date as this.
Right.
So
okay.
It's about 3000 BC.
Henges, like Stonehenge, are not actually defined by their upstanding stones, but by the circular earthworks, the banks and ditches that surround them. At Hardy's house, there are no obvious banks. It may not be a henge, but there could be pits and ditches completing what looks like it should be a circular enclosure.
I can see the house on that plan and I can see the 50 metre scale. That's enormous.
Yeah, it's 100 metres across there.
So you might find traces of it while I'm here.
Yes, let's hope so.
Yeah. Thomas Hardy would have been delighted, wouldn't he?
Yeah, wouldn't he?
21st century archaeologists were interested in what he'd discovered and were extending the investigation.
Hardy was a keen amateur archaeologist and had been keeping a close eye out for anything unusual uncovered while his new house was being built. During groundworks, a huge sarsen stone was discovered, and Hardy had it installed in pride of place. Harriet Still is an expert on how Hardy's passion for archaeology influenced his writing.
So Harriet, this was discovered in the garden of the house?
Yes, so this was dug up from the lawn behind us when they were putting in pipework in 1890. And Hardy called it his Druid stone, so he set it up on end as a garden feature.
And he is inspired by archaeology in his writing.
Yes, and when they were digging the foundations for the building, they found Romano-British skeletons in little kind of egg-shaped burial pits, and he wrote that up saying about how they were almost like little chicks kind of curled up in their shells.
What an amazing description.
I know.
Hardy's enthusiasm for archaeology drew him to one unmissable but no less mysterious feature right in the centre of Dorchester: Mournbury Rings. Until the start of the 20th century, this enormous circular earthwork was believed to have been first built by the Romans.
This is an iconic monument for Dorchester, and of course it features in Thomas Hardy's reimagining of Dorchester in The Mayor of Casterbridge. Casterbridge is Dorchester, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a place where Henchard, who has auctioned his wife 20 years earlier, agrees to meet her here because no one can see them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people like still, is it's got this really kind of intimate, enclosed feel to it. But of course, when Hardy was writing about it, he thought it was an amphitheatre from the Roman period.
Yeah.
And it's only in 1908, when he funds this excavation, that they learn a bit more about the site.
What do they find in that 1908 excavation?
They're just expecting it to confirm that it is a Roman amphitheatre, and that in itself would have been exciting enough. But they say, as usual, revelations have been made of an unexpected kind. There was a moment when the blood of us onlookers ran cold, and we shivered a shiver that was not occasioned by our wet feet and dripping clothes. Up were thrown from one corner prehistoric implements, chipped flints, horns and other remains, and a voice announced that the earthworks were of the Paleolithic or Neolithic age and not Roman at all.
Oh my goodness.
And he has this kind of crisis at that moment of thinking, I've portrayed it as this Roman Colosseum in my big book that has gone out everywhere. Luckily they found further evidence to support that it was a Roman amphitheatre later.
But it's a henge monument to begin with then, and then it's later reused by the Romans and transformed into an amphitheatre. I think it's a lovely place.
Isn't it wonderful?
Fantastic.
Hardy's imagination was fired by Mourmbury rings, but it could be that something almost as impressive was hidden much closer to home, as signs of Martin's hoped-for Neolithic enclosure start to emerge in the paddock.
I'm particularly intrigued by this patch of earth here, which I think is not just earth on top, is it? That looks like a feature that's been dug down into the chalk.
It is well spotted, definitely. It's really when you get the dark patches, that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a nice big one. It's looking up, I think.
I might have to grab a mattock and get involved.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Then Martin directs me over to the front of the house, where a very small trench is showing more signs of Neolithic activity. Right outside Hardy's front door.
So Martin, what do you think that we've got here?
Well, I think we've struck what we were looking for most unexpectedly in such a small trench.
It's only a metre squared.
I know, but you can see in the way circle has been inscribed around here. There's Max Gate, there's the porch, which is just over there.
And we're just here.
And if we've calculated everything to millimetre perfection, as we hope to, then a trench there should strike it.
So is there any evidence that the chalk has been dug out here on the circular trajectory Martin's mapped out?
There's definitely something here, Martin, because this is all the chalk bedrock.
Yes.
And I've just jumped in to help Rob and Carol while I couldn't resist. And this is fill.
The kind of period we're looking for, that's an ideal filling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much coming out, though. There's
No, well, there is a struck flint, which is always a good sign.
Definitely not just a natural flint.
No, it doesn't look like much, does it? But it's got the core, and then you've got a striking platform, so someone walloped like that. So yeah, definitely a struck flint, made by somebody a long time ago.
So it proves that this ditch is circular, that it's not just this side here, it does go all the way round. And it shows that Thomas Hardy built his house on what was potentially a sacred space that went back thousands of years.
Just within the sacred space.
He had no idea though, did he?
No, he didn't, no.
He'd be very happy, wouldn't he, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
By the mid-1st century, the Roman Empire stretched from Syria to Spain and from Egypt to Britain. Everywhere they ruled, they built, and it's their fortifications that often remain most impressive.
The Romans loved a wall, and Emperor Hadrian's coast-to-coast creation left the definite impression that they had reached their limits in the north. But what about the far southwest? The Roman signature there is much less visible than it is across the rest of the south. But a recent excavation has revealed hard evidence that Cornwall did not escape the full force of the invasion.
Just years after their arrival, almost all of southern Britain had been conquered by the armies of Rome. Until now, the most westerly evidence of the invading Roman legions has been in Devon. But our next dig takes us further west, to the Cornish village of Roach. Here, a team preparing for the construction of a new road could be about to redraw the map of the Roman military advance.
Yeah, I've got a dark splodge there.
Sean Taylor from the Cornwall Archaeological Unit is leading the investigation.
We undertook a geophysical survey of the chosen route, which did throw up a few surprises, including a very large enclosure with rounded corners.
Those curved corners are a clue that this could be a Roman fort or camp.
It was a fairly big surprise. We don't often get the chance to dig anything Roman in Cornwall. So, yeah, I was very excited about it.
The dig began in winter 2022.
As you can see, conditions aren't ideal.
But nothing could dampen the excitement of finding formidable defences built by Roman soldiers.
We've started on the Roman ditch. Awesome to look at, nice and military. You can see the ankle breaking nicely at the bottom. Just needs a bit of cleaning up, we're still working in progress.
The ankle breaker is the characteristic feature of a Roman defensive ditch. It's a square-cut slot designed to catch and twist the feet of enemy soldiers or horses.
This is only literally the bottom foot that's left of it. It could have well been up here, and then you'd have another great bank at the top of it. So it's what they've done is really quite impressive to go, we're here. We're Rome, this is it.
An army marches on its stomach, and the team are uncovering evidence of the large ovens they use to cook their rations.
As you can see, this one actually shows a strong indication of burning with bright red. So that would obviously be the burning and probably the cooking preparation area.
A few fragments of ceramic have also been found.
I've noticed there's a small piece of cloth. Just going to free it now gently.
But a lack of other signs of habitation suggests the camp was occupied for no more than a couple of weeks, and Sean thinks he knows why.
I believe this camp to be part of the initial invasion force in the early 50s AD under Vespasian, the future emperor.
The dig continues for 5 more months as the team searches for more evidence of the Romans in Roche. Armed with the latest news and some finds from the site, Sean has marched into the digging tent to bring me up to date.
Thank you for bringing in all these finds, Sean, but I'm really interested in this because this looks like brand new information.
So yeah, the information just in, hot off the press. The original geophysical survey showed one side of this camp or fort, typical Roman rounded corners. But since then, we've extended the survey into these fields over this side, and we've now got a return to the camp over here.
Yeah.
And you can see it's bigger than we originally thought.
So it's huge. Looking at the scale there, the long side of it must be 500 metres.
Just under 500 metres.
So this could have accommodated a lot of people?
A lot of people, yes. Up to 10,000 people, I would say.
So are we looking at something which could have been a legionary camp,
A full legion with all the followers, I think, yeah.
It's exciting because this is the first time that we're seeing evidence of an entire legion moving this far west in Cornwall.
Almost no finds came out of the large camp, but Sean has brought a selection from a smaller fortlet that was also discovered at the site.
We've actually got our one piece of amphora.
Presumably the amphora is that's goods coming in
yes.
big storage vessels.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, olive oil, wine, that kind of
Fish
thing.
sauce.
Yeah. And what about that? Is that a quernstone?
So this is part of a rotary quern. Obviously its presence indicates that they were grinding cereals into flour.
Yeah, yeah.
So presumably here for a little longer than they were in the camp.
Yeah. And what's that? Is that another quern?
This is, yes, well I thought it was a quern when I first saw it, but no, it's much more interesting than that. It's a fragment of a mould to create a pewter dish.
Really?
Yes, so originally it would have been circular.
Yeah.
A sheet of pewter would have been laid on it, it would have been cold hammered into the mould.
So this really takes us to the heart of surely why the Romans are in Cornwall to start with.
Well, obviously a big component of pewter is tin, and I think the location of this fortlet, as with the camp, it's right above the largest source of stream tin in Western Europe.
And presumably the Romans knew that.
Yeah, absolutely. Presumably they're purchasing the tin. Maybe the locals are very happy about that.
I think it's really interesting to see additional evidence of the Romans in Cornwall. There's almost been a myth that's emerged of Cornwall being completely separate and the Romans not really reaching Cornwall at all, but recent years are showing that that's not true at all.
Absolutely. I mean, it just shows that it wasn't exceptional down here.
A grass is long in the valley, my love, and there we'll go to lie. When the hawk is high above the house for us, and he guards all of the blue sky.
The farmland of the south is a patchwork of fields, a pattern that has evolved over time. The low terraces along the rivers of southern Britain have provided fertile flat fields for keeping livestock and growing crops for generations.
A huge challenge for any farmer growing cereals is how to store the grain. Now, today we keep grain hermetically sealed in steel silos. Back in the Iron Age, they had a different solution: underground storage pits. Once those stores were open and emptied, the pits could be reused for different purposes. And that means that they are valuable time capsules for archaeologists, especially when you've got hundreds of them in just one place.
Our next dig is at an extraordinary concentration of prehistoric storage pits in the small village of Stanton Harcourt in Oxfordshire. Activity on the site dates back to the Neolithic, but it was in the Iron Age that people really left their mark. In 2021, archaeologists preparing a site for a new housing development here started to uncover deep cylindrical storage pits, one after another after another. Jamie Williams from Thames Valley Archaeological Services is supervising what has become a massive investigation.
Does it have any cut marks on it? These pits, I haven't counted, but we have over 1,000 just in a line, and they're going directly under those houses. So you have about 170 metres of this pit alignment, and it's still going on both sides.
These pits date back to the 1st century BCE, a time when the Thames Valley was being heavily exploited for growing cereal crops like emmer and spelt. But the well-drained sand and gravel also proved ideal for storing the grain, thanks to some prehistoric ingenuity.
So we're in one of the Iron Age grain storage pits that we've excavated. They would have filled it with grain, and then at the top they would have put some turf over to make it airtight. And the grain that touches the sides of the pit starts to germinate. And then after all the air is used up, because it's sealed up with the turf, it turns into an anaerobic environment and it stops the germination process. And then when they take the turf off, they've got all this grain stored at nice below ground temperatures for them to eat.
Grain could be stored like this for several years, but the pits weren't fail-safe. Sometimes an animal would burrow in, letting air enter, causing the grain to go mouldy. When that happened, the pit had to be emptied and sterilised by fire before it could be reused.
I've just had this lovely piece of charcoal come out. You can see when you smudge it, it gives you this lovely black residue, and you can see the grain of the wood when you look closely on charcoal. We often get with these, they're storage pits, so we get a layer of burning and then a layer of seeds underneath. So I'm taking this down, and hopefully we might find some in situ seeds underneath this charcoal layer.
Each pit could be repeatedly used for grain storage, with additional pits being dug when needed. But sometimes these deep holes would be repurposed, including becoming ready-made graves.
Here we had a child burial, which was just in here. The natural kind of came out to the top, and it was like kind of like put onto a shelf, probably like no older than 3 years old. I think we've had about 6 burials so far within these pits.
But graves are proving to be the exception, and most of these pits seem to have had a more domestic function as rubbish bins.
These pits seem to be producing just a whole range of finds. I mean, you've got these lovely bits of pottery. You can see the cross-section of it there where it's been broken. That looks early Iron Age. And you've got animal bones. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these bones had cut marks on them. It's been someone's dinner.
during the next 4 months of the dig, more and more evidence of Iron Age life comes to light. It all means that Jamie has collected an astonishing array of finds to assess and learn from, and he's brought the best of them along to the Digging for Britain tent.
Jamie, it's such an incredible site. I mean, it's
It
so
is.
busy, isn't
I
it, when
know.
you look at that aerial image. But then what you've got going through the middle of it is that great swathe of storage pits.
Over 1,000 storage pits.
Yeah, and you've got this wonderful slice through the Iron Age with all of these different finds.
So you've got some textile shears.
Oh, those are amazing.
That would have joined in and used as almost like scissors. Could be for wool, could be for fabric, we're not too sure.
Yeah. And then what about this? This long piece of iron.
The
What's
golf club.
that? The golf club.
It's really interesting, this, because we first thought it was like something like a sword, it was poking out the top, and then we thought maybe a currency bar. But if you look at it, our best bet is that it's some sort of a scythe.
So this is quite blunt here and wide.
Yes.
And then this side, yeah, that is...
It's like a blade edge.
That's thin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, having thought it was a sword to begin with, I think it's potentially even more interesting as a scythe, because how often do we see big scythes
Exactly.
like this?
I've never encountered an Iron Age scythe. They're quite rare.
And then what else then? We've got some nice pottery.
Yeah, this is a pot we put back together. This was from one of the storage pits. It's very lovely, actually. So you got base until the rim.
And it's got some holes in it.
It does, it does. It has 4 holes, would I assume there'd be 1 here, and then you have 1 at the bottom as the 5th hole.
Yeah, some kind of drainage, isn't it? But,
Yeah,
you know, what was in it that was then draining away?
Exactly, yeah.
What about these objects here? These are really intriguing. Is that an ammonite?
It is an ammonite. You can hold it if you want. It's actually got a hole jawed out the middle. So
Yeah.
some sort of pendant, maybe.
I love that, because we still pick up ammonites today and make them into jewellery and see them as kind of interesting natural objects.
Mhm.
And you've got the same thing happening in prehistory.
Yes, no, it's lovely,
Yeah.
isn't it? And then there was a pit which cut the top of this one, which ended up having the half a human skull, which I think is particularly interesting.
I think it's potentially been modified. Some of these edges seem quite smoothed. We have to consider the possibility that this could have been deliberately created as an object in this way. I think these pits are so fascinating because, you know, at times, clearly, they're just rubbish pits.
Yeah.
And then at other times, they're not. They're much more.
So it's definitely one of those sites that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
Thousands of years before the Iron Age, our ancestors were already transforming the landscape, clearing forests to grow crops, and building monuments of earth and stone. Here on the chalklands of southern England, they built towering earthworks like Silbury Hill and vast stone circles like Stonehenge and Avebury. Our next dig sits amongst these ancient sites in the Wiltshire village of East Kennet.
Recently, a brand new discovery was made in this field, in amongst this extraordinary, epic landscape. And the archaeologists have opened trenches up and they are getting ready to lift the lid, as it were, on this mystery. And that's why I'm here, to see it happen.
It all began in 2020 when a void suddenly appeared in this wheat field. The landowner called in the professionals, and a few weeks ago, Josh Pollard brought his team from Southampton University to investigate. The students have since cleared the topsoil away to reveal several large stones around this mysterious deep hole, which they're just about to start excavating.
OK, so here we have our pit with the sarsen stones.
It's weird. What is it?
I mean, that's the big question. So what we have is a void that opened up in the ground. We can see there are a number of big sarsen boulders. And we've realised that at least 3 of these, and possibly all 4, were originally set upright.
Oh.
And
this is the base of it, is
that's
it?
the base, yeah. In the
Oh,
same
yeah.
way that this is the base of that stone,
Yeah.
which would have sat in that pit.
Any idea at this point about the age of it or the function of it?
We've not seen anything like this, so we're going into the unknown a little bit. But we do know from this landscape that there are a number of quite big graves which have been recorded since the 19th century, which are often associated with beaker burials,
Right.
and which have sarsen linings and
Yeah.
sometimes sarsen capstones.
So early Bronze Age.
So early Bronze Age is a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
We've just got to try and find a body in the bottom.
Well, to go down any further, you're going to have to get these out of the way.
We are, yes, yes. They're quite heavy.
I hope it hasn't crushed whatever's underneath it. Scattered over the North Wessex Downs are hundreds of prehistoric monuments, some of them burial sites, from Neolithic long barrows where many people were buried together, to Bronze Age round barrows and stone-lined kist burials. This group of sarsens could be the remains of a burial chamber, but to find out, we're going to need some mechanical muscle.
That's fine, that's okay, yeah, that's all right. Oh, hang on. No.
In order to understand this structure, we have to move these stones out of the way, and they weigh, if not a ton, hundreds of kilograms. And so at this point, you know, it's not trowels, it's heavy plant that's doing the lifting.
Moments of truth.
Oh my goodness, it looked like that strap was gonna come off then. Brilliant, that's one stone out, we've got two left before we can start to take this pit down, find out what's at the bottom of it. And it could be a burial. The telehandler has been arranged by James, the owner of the site. James, this is an extraordinary thing to have turned up on your land. How did you discover it?
I assumed it was a badger set. You know, we have lots of badgers around here, and immediately you could tell that that is no badger set. It was this perfect circular sort of sinkhole. And when you looked into it, you could see the edges of the sarsen stone, and you sort of felt something. So you definitely felt you were looking back in history.
Well, also, I mean, you're in this landscape which is completely peppered with prehistoric remains.
So we're standing actually in the World Heritage Site that was extended in 2006 to encompass the East Kennet Long Barrow. And almost everywhere you look in the landscape, you can see evidence of the people who have been here before.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, there we go.
That's him.
There we go. Whew.
There's a lot of discussion around where to put the straps, and just imagine the people who put these stones in place having a very similar conversation.
Imagine just doing it with your own bare hands.
Yeah, it's a feat of engineering, isn't it? The team have now had a few hours to excavate down into the void to prepare to lift the remaining sarsens. But is Josh any the wiser?
To be honest, I'm still quite puzzled by it. So I think at the start of the day, there was still a bit of a sense that, you know, perhaps it could turn into a kist, into a kind of burial monument.
Yeah.
I kind of feel less confident about that now.
Right, okay.
Largely because were it a kist, I think we'd just expect the stones perhaps to be arranged in a box-like format.
Yeah.
Is there any analogy for this, any comparison for this?
There isn't really, no. But I mean, we do know from some very early records that there might be a whole range of different kinds of construction using sarsen stones that existed in this landscape. Many of which, of course, have disappeared through sort of clearance and cultivation.
So lots of questions still.
Yes, I hope the truth's down there, yes.
Yeah. I left Josh and his team to remove the remaining sarsens and hopefully uncover the secrets of this intriguing chamber. Two weeks of challenging archaeology later, and Josh is at the Digging for Britain tent with the latest news. Josh, how much deeper did you dig and what did you find?
OK, so we dug down another 2 metres. At that stage, we realised that rather than having a nice beaker or early Bronze Age kist or burial chamber, actually what we had was a natural feature, a sinkhole.
So it's geological rather than archaeological?
It's a mixture of geology and archaeology. Although it's a natural feature, it's still a natural feature that people modified by having a ledge dug around the outside of it. And then the big sarcens that we could see in the top had originally been placed almost like a kind of a sarsen wall or fence.
A barrier, do you think?
Yes, it's a barrier of some kind, so it could be a barrier just designed to stop children or animals falling in, or it's a barrier presumably created to emphasise the feature.
Oh, so yeah, to create a kind of monument.
Exactly. And we've got a sense of when that happens because we found 2 quite remarkable finds which had gone in next to the stones when the stones had been placed.
Yeah.
So on one side, we found this very nice little late Roman coin of the Emperor Gratian. So
when was he reigning?
360s, 370s, thereabouts.
That's lovely. I mean, it's so... it's not particularly worn, is it?
No,
you can see the details of his headdress really nicely.
And that was found in one of the sockets of one of the sarcens that had been set upright on one side of the pit.
Oh, so that absolutely tells you that that sarsen stone has gone in after this date.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's right. Yes, good dating evidence. And then on the other side of the pit, we've got this rather lovely spindle whorl, which has been made out of Kimmeridge shale.
Yeah, that is nice. Beautifully formed, nicely symmetrical. And is that probably Roman as well?
It's going to be Roman.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So this is quite intriguing because, of course, by the time we get to the Romans, we've got Roman mythology. We know that they looked at openings in the ground, they looked at caves and saw them as openings to the underworld.
Yes.
Even.
They're depositing coins into the chambers of monuments like the West Kennet Long Barrow, which again you could see as being another opening up into an underworld.
Well, I think I've now recovered from my disappointment at this not being a Bronze Age kist, and I'm now intrigued by this being a response in Roman times to that wider, quite mystical landscape.
And that's what makes archaeology such a kind of vibrant and sometimes quite unpredictable subject.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is good archaeology.
Yes, yes.
These islands we call home have a rich and varied history stretching back thousands of years. But hidden under the ground and underwater are some amazing treasures just waiting to be found.
Wow!
So each year, all across the country, archaeologists dig, dive, and explore their way down.
This is brilliant.
Searching for fresh discoveries.
And it is completely intact.
Revealing traces of ancient cultures.
This shoe is 2,803 years old.
Oh, wow.
And unearthing fascinating artefacts.
Oh, that's a nice thing. What is it?
I've never seen anything quite like it in my career.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw.
That's so cool, isn't it?
That is the epic story of our islands. This year, I visit digs in some extraordinary locations.
The ceiling just got a bit lower.
And I call on the help of a trio of expert investigators.
It's quite difficult to find any other evidence of things that just leave a mark in the archaeology.
This is a really powerful document because we're getting to hear the voices that we don't usually hear.
Who delve deeper to answer the questions raised by the finds.
Is all of this already recorded in books?
There was none of this in a book anywhere.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their most amazing discoveries into our tent.
Astonishing.
For up-close analysis.
Genuinely rewriting history. Welcome to Digging for Britain.
This time I'm exploring the east of England, looking at the region's most fascinating and unusual digs. In Norfolk, we go back to the time of the Iceni tribe, once led by the rebellious Queen Boudica.
This feels like some special kind of witchcraft.
I'm baffled by arguably the strangest object we've ever had in 11 series. And this is just extraordinary. Look at that! And we even set sail for Belgium to revisit the site of one of Britain's most famous battles.
There are loads of books written on Waterloo. Not one of them mentions this.
As Rome's invading army crashed its way through Iron Age Britain, the architecture of occupation took root in our landscapes. Imposing fortifications announced a new regime was here to stay. With a transport system to boost the economy and a transformation of Iron Age settlements into Roman towns. Our first dig takes place at Bracebridge Heath on the outskirts of Lincoln. Today, Lincoln is famous for its grand cathedral, which stood as the world's tallest building for more than 200 years, and the imposing Lincoln Castle, built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century. But Lincoln was an important town 1,000 years earlier, during the Roman period. This is the oldest arch in Britain that you can still drive through. It's actually Roman. It dates to the 3rd century, and it was the original north gate of Lincoln, or Lindum Colonia, as it would have been called then. And this road is part of Ermine Street, which links Lincoln down to London. Previous archaeological digs in Lincoln have revealed that it had all the trappings of an important Roman town, with a forum, baths, temples, and houses with richly decorated mosaics. But what's less well known is what the area outside the town was like, along the route of Ermine Street. Just a few miles to the south of Lincoln, archaeologists have been trying to find that original Roman road, Ermine Street, and they've done it. But that's not all they found. Whenever a large infrastructure project gets underway in the UK, among the first people on the scene are the archaeologists. Anglian Water suspected that their new pipeline would run right through the path of Ermine Street, once a bustling Roman highway, but they didn't know exactly where it was. So they brought in a huge joint venture team from 3 different archaeological companies, York, Oxford and Pre-Construct Archaeology, and Kelly Sinclair is one of the project officers. Kelly, hi.
Nice
hello,
to meet you.
hello, nice to meet
Hi.
you too. This is your trench.
It is, yeah.
It's huge. And this is it. This is Ermine Street.
It is, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, are these greaves real? Are they
Yeah.
Roman?
So they are the wheel ruts from sort of the wagons, the traffic.
Yeah.
That would have been coming along the road here.
So that means you know you've got the surface of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. These wheel ruts are evidence of heavy use, of the many travellers that used the Roman roads of Britain, soldiers, officials and civilians. There are no obvious buildings right beside Ermine Street here, but just a few hundred metres away, they've uncovered something remarkable.
Oh, walls. Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah.
In all different directions. We were quite surprised when this much came up when we stripped the area.
The remains of a completely unknown settlement. But when does it date to?
And what about the pottery? You've got some of the pottery
Yeah,
there.
so-
Presumably helps with dating.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally we're looking at mid-2nd to late 4th century for sort of the span of the settlement. And then we've got this quite nice piece here that's actually got a maker's stamp on it. So that's Lincolnshire Mortaria.
That's the maker, is it?
Yeah, that is. And that's actually quite precisely dated to 100 to 140 AD.
Really?
So that could be a sign of sort of the earlier side of when the settlement started here.
The artefacts from this incredibly finds-rich site suggest that this wasn't your average rural Roman settlement. And archaeologist Paul Rinner has brought a particular highlight to show me.
Oh, Paul!
Hi.
So this is the special find.
Yes, this is the commemorative carved stone.
So it's got an inscription on it, hasn't it? But it's really
Yeah.
hard to read that. Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness. I can make out a D here. Is that an E?
That looks like an E, potentially. If you...
Does anybody have any idea what it might say and what it might have been used for?
Yeah, so we think they're usually found on altars or tombstones.
Okay.
This one's more likely come from a tombstone. And the inscription says something along the lines of laid in commemoration. The person who's laid it, commemorating that they've laid it and that they've laid it with their own money.
Yeah.
So it's quite a status symbol, I suppose, of them sort of saying that, look what I can afford.
And the small finds also get us closer to the people living here.
Can I take the lid off?
Yes, you can lift the lid, yeah.
What have we got here? Right, lots of metal finds. That is a little key. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
They clearly had something that was worth keeping under lock and key.
Yes, something they didn't want someone else getting their hands on.
Yeah. So again, you know, they're not just eking out an existence here, are they?
No,
they have
I
some
think
nice things.
They've definitely got some nice things they don't want other people to have.
And what about this mysterious box here?
This is one of the star finds so far. This is a nice enamelled brooch.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's been brought in from the continent, and that's, again...
Has it?
Yeah, it's continental design.
Isn't that lovely? I mean, we're just getting an idea of how elaborate it is, but we're not really seeing just how beautiful and bright it would have been.
Yeah, so the enamel will have dulled, but that would have been very vibrant greens and things shining through.
Yeah.
We know from previous excavations that Roman Lincoln was a rich, bustling commercial centre. But these discoveries show that this wealth seems to have spilled out beyond the town walls.
I think there's a lot about this landscape that just hasn't changed in 18 centuries. But there's an important difference, that right here, there was a settlement, a big settlement, and that's been an unexpected discovery. The archaeologists knew that Ermine Street was around here to be found, but the scale of this small town has really surprised them, and not just the size of it, but the fact that the people living here were clearly affluent. And then, for some reason, after the 4th century, this whole place is abandoned, falls into ruin, and disappears under the fields of wheat.
The landscape of Britain is full of traces of past lives. Some of them still evident today, but many hidden and forgotten until archaeologists come along and bring them into the light. Whole communities have disappeared from sight and memory. And sometimes we stumble upon the remains of not just roads and settlements, but the people themselves. Our next dig takes place on a large infrastructure project that's still ongoing in the county of Lincolnshire. An ambitious National Grid scheme called the Viking Link will involve laying the world's longest electricity connector between Britain and Denmark to enable the sharing of green energy across borders. It provides a unique opportunity to explore huge swathes of landscape, and Wessex Archaeology, who are working on the scheme, have made an astonishing discovery. Dating back to the early medieval period.
We're in the Lincolnshire Wolds, and I think the most spectacular thing that we have here are several inhumations. There's a little bit of debate at the moment as to what period they date from. Speculatively, it could either be the 1st century AD, or I'm kind of erring towards Anglo-Saxon now.
This period is so sparsely documented, it's sometimes still called the Dark Ages. So archaeology becomes supremely important to understanding communities in Britain at this time. And here, there are 23 burials, 23 people with stories to tell.
Some of the grave goods we're pulling out of them, I've never seen anything quite like it in my career. So we're getting copper alloy brooches. A lot of the burials have small iron knives at their waists, and that seems to be quite a standard practice within early Anglo-Saxon burials, and they tend to be associated with female burials. Archaeologically speaking, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Absolutely incredible.
These people would have been buried fully clothed with their jewellery and personal possessions. So we learn about the material culture from these burials, but the bones themselves also contain precious information about who these people were. As a howling gale batters the tent, osteoarchaeologists Jackie McKinley and Kerry Boston join me to talk about the post-excavation work they're doing on this site.
Jackie and Kerry, thank you very much for bringing these burials along. Can you tell me a little bit more about the site itself, the context of it?
Right, OK. It's an Anglo-Saxon cemetery. We had in total, I think, 22 graves with 23 individuals in them.
OK.
And the reason there was one more individual than graves is because one of them had 2 individuals in it, and that is where these 2 individuals came from here. The other thing you will notice is the bone is not in very good condition.
No, it is a bit fragmentary, isn't it? I mean, especially this child skeleton.
Yeah.
The ends of the bones are missing completely, and all you've got left are the shafts where you've got the more compact bone.
How well preserved bone is nothing to do with how old it is. It's to do with the burial conditions. But having said that, we can still do quite a lot with it. And Kerry, indeed, has done quite a lot with working out what we have here in terms of age and perhaps the sex of the individuals, which is not always so easy, is it?
No, and particularly when they're very young.
Yeah.
I think we're just starting to see some changes on the older skeleton. She's probably a female. She's probably 15 to 17 years old, so still in the process of maturing. And the little one is only 3 to 5, and so they're unlikely to be mother and child.
Yeah.
Just the ages are just too close.
That's interesting, because I think when I first saw this, you kind of assume that what you're looking at is a parent and child relationship.
I mean, they could have been brother and sister, they could have been cousins, they could be a familial relationship. But if you're living in a small community, then everybody probably knew each other. And rather than burying them alone, a little one alone, they may well have put him or her with somebody who they knew in life.
Yeah.
And that's where the DNA will come in. We will ultimately do DNA analysis and try and get an idea of that relationship.
And there are some grave goods in this grave.
There are indeed. We've got a brooch, a little bronze brooch, penannular brooch here, which is in such beautiful condition you could almost wear it. We do have these 2 wonderful gold and garnet pendants here, but just look at how the gold has been formed on that. Little coils that have been joined together.
Yeah.
And it really is quite beautiful.
And when was she buried? Do we know? What's the date of these graves?
Well, these items that we've got here are going to be very late 6th century and into the late 7th century.
And is it unusual to find grave goods in graves of that age?
They start to get rarer. People didn't seem to be buried with as much goodies staggered around them. But these are very high status.
I mean, this saying something about her status as well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because she's very young. So we're looking at inherited status, probably.
Potentially inherited status. And we are actually in the early stages of doing this work at the moment. So we'll be doing more detailed dating of some of the burials so that we can find out the longevity of the cemetery. And doing the DNA is going to give us how the different graves were related to each other. We'll also be looking at things like the strontium and oxygen isotopes, which will give us where those people grew up.
Yeah, because that gets locked into teeth as you're forming them.
Exactly. So there'll be lots of other scientific work that we'll be doing that will help us understand this community and how they related to other communities within the area.
For a long time, we had this almost endless debate about the Anglo-Saxons and how many people are coming over from the continent and whether it's just a continuation of a migration that, you know, kind of starts in the Roman era or not.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting some clarity about that now. Clearly, there's moving around within Britain as well.
Yeah. It's quite obvious, looking at these things, the items we've got here, that people in different communities and different groups, quite often a long way apart, would have interacted with each other.
And I like it because it's, you know, they've been forgotten about, these people.
It's another form of sort of giving them a type of immortality.
Much of East Anglia is a flat, fertile plain, perfect for agriculture. But it also means that archaeology can be at risk of being demolished by the plough. Sometimes, though, seemingly against the odds, something survives for thousands of years. Our next dig in the east takes us to Warham, 30 miles northwest of Norwich.
This is Norfolk, home to the Iron Age tribe that the Romans tell us was called the Iceni, and of course to the Queen Boudica herself, who led a failed uprising against the Romans. But this site takes us back centuries before Rome even looked at Britain with a glint in its eye.
Boudica's famous revolt against Roman occupation happened in the year 60 CE. But the history of the Iceni tribe stretches back centuries before, into the Iron Age. The signature monument of the Iron Age is the Hill Fort, and despite its famous flatness, East Anglia has a few, but most have not withstood the ravages of time. The Normans built a castle on top of Thetford's fort, and Holcombe Camp has merged into Saltmarsh. But the spectacular preservation of the Hill Fort at Warham makes it a prime site for investigation. Andy Hutchison from the University of East Anglia is leading the dig.
Andy.
Hi, Alice.
Hello. This is utterly gorgeous, and it's unexpected as well.
Yeah.
A hill fort in Norfolk. And you're obviously here hoping to find out something new about this hill fort. So what do we know already? Has it been previously archaeologically investigated?
Yeah, it has. In 1914, and then again in 1959.
Right.
And they established it was Iron Age.
OK.
So we're here to further characterise it, but also to date it accurately.
Because the Iron Age lasts a long time. It's nearly a millennium.
Yeah, exactly. It's 800 through to, well, in this part of the world, 60, 61 AD.
Yeah.
The fort here at Warham would have been an impressive stronghold, with tall banks probably topped by a palisade and surrounded by deep ditches on all sides. And it's in the bottom of the ditch that the team are hoping to find something to help them date the fort's earliest phase.
That's so deep.
Amazing,
and full
isn't
of
it?
water.
Yes, yes. It's just filled out up from groundwater. Yeah, because the river's just over there. We've come down onto a peat, which is very exciting because we should be able to get interesting information about the immediate environment.
Yeah.
Probably also the wider environment as well at the time. So pollen that will tell us about the trees
So you'll
in
have
this
good
area.
preservation of organic remains in that.
That's the hope.
You've got some bones. And what bones are they? They're not human.
They're
certainly.
not. They are horse.
Nice to find a horse because the Iceni
Interesting.
were known to be horse people, weren't they? Do you think it's deliberately deposited or do you think this is just rubbish that has ended up in the ditch?
The fact that it's not mixed with cattle and pig and
Right,
all
okay.
sorts, it's compelling
Yeah.
that it
Could
might
be something meaningful.
something meaningful.
These organic remains will be sent for radiocarbon dating after the dig to help establish a firm sequence of occupation for the fort. This is a nature reserve as well as a scheduled monument, so the team have had to be as uninvasive as possible. In the interior, they've dug 21 small test pits. And they're painstakingly sieving all of the sediment from each test pit, looking for clues.
Hello. Hi. What are you finding in here? Apart from rocks.
Well, apart from rocks, we found shells, oyster shells, right? Yeah. Then bones, then some pottery. Exactly. Then
That's not a
even
bad
flints. Even flints. Like this is flints. I'm an archaeologist from West Africa.
Yeah.
No matter where we're doing archaeology, it's more or less the same. We all will use trowel, we all will use spade, we all will use bucket, and we all sieve.
And you're all challenging history as well. You're finding a different strand of evidence, a different way of looking at the past.
This methodical approach is paying off. They've gathered a substantial haul of finds from the fort's interior, allowing archaeologist Matt Brudenell to see how much activity was going on over time.
What about the finds that we've got coming out of here then? Because I've had a look at the trench that's going through the ditch, and that suggests that there's a long period of time that there's something going on here. Are you getting a good idea from finds inside the fort?
We are, yeah. We've got some evidence of Iron Age finds coming out of the site.
Yeah.
Some Iron Age pottery, but as you can see, there isn't a great deal of material of this period coming out of the site.
No, it's only tiny pieces, isn't
Tiny
it?
pieces, yeah. The bulk of the material that we're getting from the excavations dates to the Roman period, but not the beginning of the Roman period, actually to the end of the Roman period. So we're talking like 3rd and 4th century AD.
After the Roman invasion of Britain in 43 CE, the king of the Iceni ruled his kingdom independently, but as an ally of Rome. When he died, the Romans ousted his wife Boudicca and seized the kingdom, triggering the Boudiccan revolt, which ultimately ended in defeat. But life in what had been the kingdom of the Iceni would go on. And the evidence from this hill fort suggests it had a new lease of life in the late Roman period. Alongside the pottery, there are hobnails from boots and intriguing signs of industry. The sediment here contains one last secret.
I've never done this before.
OK, so if you take the magnet and you just run it through the soil itself, all those little tiny pieces of iron.
This feels like some special kind of witchcraft in there.
It does a bit of sort of alchemy
So-
kind of thing. And there you go. And it's not, you can move it around. It looks just like dirt sticking to it.
It does look like dirt, but hang on
You
a
can
minute.
see
No,
that it
look
doesn't
at
just
that.
come off. It wants to stay on the magnet.
You can't brush it away, so it is iron, isn't it? Little tiny bits of metal. Yeah, look at that.
When hot metal was being worked on an anvil, tiny, tiny little flakes of
Little bits of
hammer
metal.
scale come
Yeah.
off and remain in the soil.
That's
So, yes.
extraordinary. Is that right across the site here?
Well, there seems to be a real density of it in this area. So much so that when metal detector was run over here, it gave an almost continuous low signal
Yeah,
across the area. So we're We think we're standing in an area that would have been a Roman forge.
These tiny scales of iron, so easy to miss in excavation, are a clue that the abandoned hill fort became home to an out-of-town blacksmith centuries later. There are still mysteries to be solved here. More secrets will emerge as the dig ends and the post-excavation work gets underway.
Here we've got an incredibly precious, rare opportunity for archaeologists to bring modern techniques to bear on questions like, when exactly was this built? And then what happens to it? In the Roman period, there's a lull, and then it seems people are back here. And they're back here with industry, with metalworking. And I love the fact that we're getting that evidence out of those subtle, small traces, pulling fragments of metal out of the ground with a magnet.
Some evidence of Roman Britain seems easy to interpret. Hobnails from boots, iron scales from metalworking, the architecture of ancient amphitheatres. But other Roman finds are very strange indeed.
Most of the time when archaeologists discover an object, they can work out what it is. Sometimes it might be really obvious and it might be something we're familiar with in our everyday lives. It might be a piece of jewellery or a knife. But occasionally you get an object which is just so mysterious, so enigmatic, that even the best archaeologists are left scratching their heads.
Our next puzzling discovery comes from the tiny village of Norton Disney, 12 miles southwest of Lincoln. The village is named after the Norman lords of the manor, the Disney family, but its history goes back much further than just a mere 1,000 years. In 1933, a Roman villa was discovered near the village. Now the team are hunting for more evidence from the Roman period. The team in question is the Norton Disney History and Archaeology Group, now embarking on their third and biggest excavation so far, captured by their dig diary.
We've come here this year to try and find out something about the Roman archaeology, which has been hinted at for more than a few years now by some of the geophysical surveys that we've done, and also some other local finds as well.
This is an elevated site in an otherwise flat landscape, giving panoramic views across the Trent Valley. A geophysical survey had revealed a mysterious feature at its centre that, on excavation, turned out to be a large pit.
So, Tom, tell us a little bit about what you've been finding in Trench 4.
It's a quarry pit that has been filled with demolition material. So we've been finding a lot of Roman pottery, quite a few sort of rims.
A convenient hole in the ground becomes filled with rubbish over time. So far, it's a very ordinary story. But then, on the penultimate day of digging, something extraordinary emerges from the pit.
So, Richard, what is it?
So this is a Roman dodecahedron. We don't really know exactly what they're used for, but they're super rare. But it's absolutely amazing finding this.
Richard Parker has come along to the tent with expert Lorena Hitchens to try to shed some light on this intriguing find.
So, Richard, what's in the box?
So, the big reveal today.
And this is absolutely astonishing. Look at that.
This is our special find.
This
is the standout
I mean, it's
thing.
outrageous. You know, we've got this kind of this pottery, and you think, yes, okay, we're on a Roman site, and then this extraordinary object. What was it like when you found it? What was it like that day?
I was making the tea at the time. Just a big shout goes up, a bit of swearing, and you think, oh, somebody's had an accident or something. So I go running over there, and then Richard, who found it on site, was holding it up, you know, and then, oh my goodness me, you found a dodecahedron. I've only read about those. I've never seen one. Yeah. And every work just stops.
Can I pick it up?
Of course.
It's really weird. So there are other examples of this type of object.
Yes.
How many do we know of?
So there are 32 from Roman Britain. That's including from whole to fragments. This makes 33 that I know of.
Yeah, so fairly rare.
And they're not necessarily Roman because they're only found in the northern and western provinces of the Roman Empire. So it's more accurate to say Romano-Celt or Gallo-Roman or Romano-Brit.
Yeah.
Something hybrid. They don't come from Rome.
And do we know anything about what is it?
So here's a couple of models.
Okay.
So this is a more typical size. This is a big boy here from, from the East Midlands.
So these are life-size replicas?
Yes. These are based on 3D models of existing examples. So when you see that variation in size, it can't be any kind of a measuring device or a gauge because they're not consistent.
No. Could it be something to do with textiles?
I don't think it's a tool because I don't find wear on the necks of the knobs.
Okay.
I don't find wear on the edges of the holes. I think they are something symbolic, and I know that sounds like a cliche. You know, when the archaeologist doesn't know, they say it's ritual. But maybe it is something ritual.
Would it have been cast, do you think?
Yes. So it is cast copper alloy. I think they're valued because the skill and effort that goes into making one is very high. I noticed when you first looked at it, you said it's so complicated to look at. But when you hold them in your hand, it's not as complicated. Put your finger in this hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put your other finger in that hole. Now turn it with your thumbs. Yeah, there you go.
So it will spin?
Yeah. But if you feel that raised design, even if you had your eyes closed, I think you would be able...
You can walk your way...
Yeah, and
you can walk your way around it.
You would get used to those imprints.
You're thinking of it as something that comes alive in the hands, then? It's that kind of ritual tactile object?
Something meditative, something that you personally know intimately, maybe.
Oh, it feels like it needs a manual to go with it, and we're missing the manual, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, good luck, because the Romans don't mention these at all.
Really?
No inscriptions, no writings, no pictorial depictions, nothing.
What about where it was found on the site, Richard? I mean, does that give us any clues?
The working theory is it's a quarry pit. We know it's relatively near a Roman villa site. The difficulty is it part of the Roman villa estate or is it something different? And really, we need to go back next year and the year after that probably to understand the context. We think there's another building on the landscape, but we're just not there yet.
I do love an archaeological mystery, and this has to be one of the greatest, most mysterious archaeological objects I've ever had the opportunity to look at up close. It's just extraordinary.
And the mystery deepens, because it's not just the shape of this object that's unusual, but its composition. After filming, the dodecahedron was subjected to chemical analysis and found to be 26% lead. That's extremely high, and at the moment, we don't know why that is. I have a feeling that there are still big revelations to come from the Norton Disney site. From the Elizabethan period onwards, grand residences in Britain slowly evolved to focus more on comfort than defence. The great and the good no longer felt it vital to hide behind castle walls for protection. And so the age of the stately home began, the ultimate symbol of status and luxury. Our next dig takes us to Enfield, on the outskirts of London. This elegant, stately home is Forty Hall. It was built by the Lord Mayor of London in the 17th century. Today, it's a museum open for visitors to come and marvel at some of the best Jacobean architecture in the country. But hidden within the landscaped garden is something far older. A lost royal palace known as Elsing, dating from the Tudor period.
Now, archaeologists are getting a chance to investigate this lost palace, which apparently was a firm favourite of Henry VIII's.
The Enfield Archaeological Society have been excavating here in the grounds of Forty Hall for the last 19 years, painstakingly uncovering the remains of the palace that has lain hidden for centuries. I'm meeting archaeologist John Pinchbeck, who's been involved with the excavations since 2004.
John, hello.
Hi, Alice. Welcome to Elsing Palace.
Hi, thank you very much. Where is the palace, though?
Well, believe it or not, we're standing in the outer courtyard.
The archaeologists used a laser imaging technique known as LiDAR to survey the grounds.
You just come down the avenue. You can see this kind of dark line crossing the avenue there, and we're standing right there in this ditch. So in Tudor times, we'd have wet feet right now.
Yeah.
This ditch formed the boundary of the outer courtyard of this missing palace.
So you don't have any contemporary plans of it?
Unfortunately not, no. So,
but that makes it quite exciting,
well, that's
doesn't
part
it?
of the challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was simple, we'd have finished years ago, and it'd be quite boring. So
let's go and have a look at what you're finding this year, then.
Parts of the palace were identified by archaeologists in the 1960s. But now the team is hoping to find its grand entrance. Martin Dern is the director of excavations on this lengthy project.
Martin,
lovely to meet you.
hi. Hello,
Yes,
lovely to meet you too. Right, what have we got here
Well,
then?
we've got a moat here that's sort of fronting the gatehouse.
Oh, OK, so there's a ditch around the outer courtyard.
Yeah.
And then there's another moat inside it then.
That's right, yes. I mean, a much bigger moat than we ever thought, perhaps about 15 metres wide.
Really?
Which would have been between the outer court, where the servants essentially were, and the gatehouse that gave access into the inner court with the royal apartments and the kitchens and so on.
Yeah.
Most Tudor palaces had two courts, an outer court where the servants lived and worked, and an inner court reserved for the wealthy owner and their family. At Elsing, the two courts are separated by a moat. Despite nearly 2 decades of excavation, one key part of the outer palace, the gatehouse, has so far eluded the archaeologists until this year.
Oh, Martin, this is lovely. It looks like is that a half octagon?
Yeah, what you've got here is a projecting angled turret, which is coming off of a larger wall, and you've got the remnant of a brick floor that sat within the turret.
And what is it?
It's almost certainly a wall that comes off of the edge, the side of the main gatehouse.
Oh, this is lovely, because you've been searching for this gatehouse, haven't you?
We have been looking for this for about 3 years, yes, so we're very pleased to see this.
How tall do you think that tower would have been?
Well, we know that the main gatehouse itself is 4 stories high. It's presumably making a sort of a spectacular statement about the status, certainly of the royal sort of members of the family who owned this, but also about somebody earlier called Sir Thomas Lovell.
Thomas Lovell became Chancellor of the Exchequer for the first Tudor king, Henry VII, in 1485. When he inherited Elsing in 1492, he set about creating a palace that was fit to host a king. Records show that King Henry VII did indeed visit the palace several times, accompanied by his young son, the future Henry VIII, who would later add Elsing to his already impressive property portfolio.
Henry VIII swaps this for two of the monasteries that he had closed down.
Yeah, it is quite a useful thing to have shut down and seized the monasteries, and then you've got the means to buy yourself a new palace.
That's right. I mean, Henry ended up with about 40 palaces.
The finds coming out of the gatehouse trenches include evidence of wealthy visitors.
Oh, that's a nice thing. What is that? Isn't that lovely?
It's called a purse bar. And so the top bar that articulates with the lower one went on your belt.
Yeah.
And the lower one is what you hung your leather or cloth purse from, so that you had your coins ready at your waist. And it's particularly nice because it still articulates
That is
and
lovely,
moves
isn't it?
around.
Yeah.
And usually, often the top piece is entirely missing, or at least completely corroded in.
A purse was an essential accessory for both Tudor men and women, and the wealthy would have had ornately decorated purses hanging from their belts. As we know from all these iconic portraits, Tudor fashion was all about power dressing.
It's great to see this evidence of the Tudor palace finally emerging after years and years of looking for it. This palace, when it was standing, would have been magnificent, fit for a king. Henry VIII loved it so much he bought it, and it would have dwarfed the hall that was later built to replace it on this estate.
I want to know a bit more about the transformation of Elsing after it became a royal residence. Historian Onyeka Nubia has unearthed more evidence of this lost palace buried deep in the archives.
I've come to the Bodleian Library in Oxford to investigate what we can learn about Henry VIII and his family through the detailed building records of the lost palace of Elsing. This document is nearly 500 years old and records the first repairs completed 6 months after Henry's initial visit.
When Henry acquired these estates, at first, they don't appear to be at a standard that he would find acceptable. It says here that there is work to be undertaken in the Great Chamber. This Great Chamber, of course, is the public face of the building where Henry would entertain.
The accounts are divided into sections according to common labourers, carpenters, tilers, and it details the work that each team had to undertake.
In the subsection entitled Tilers, it says, working not only in pointing and mending of the roof and about the Great Hall. It seems as if this building is somewhat dilapidated and is in need of considerable work.
There are subtle clues in the records that Henry intended to frequently use this palace, despite having an extensive collection of other homes to choose from.
We have another set of records which are really quite remarkable. They include a sort of more rigorous set of provisions for the imminent arrival of the king and the royal family. So we know that there is a degree of urgency, but reading further into the accounts, we find out more. It says, this work is to be done because it is coming to Christmas. So these activities are taking place probably because the royal family intends to spend Christmas at this estate.
Tiny architectural details have been meticulously recorded here, revealing the work that had to be done to accommodate the king's needs.
There's another section here entitled Carpenters, and it says the working not only in the making of a system of rails, it says, and other accoutrements to ensure that the king can continue to hunt. Now, why would they need to make these sort of special provisions? The king at this point is ailing. He is not the young, robust, athletic monarch that he was in his younger days. And these changes that are being made to the estate are really because of the condition of the king.
By the time that Henry took ownership of Elsing, he was nearly 50 years old, about to embark on his 4th marriage and in very poor health. Less than 10 years later, the young Princess Elizabeth and Prince Edward would be told that their father had died whilst visiting Elsing. And shortly after, the palace would fall out of favour with the royals. It was eventually demolished. By the 1700s, this formal garden concealed its remains for more than 300 years.
When it came to Henry VIII's foreign enemies, the French were top of the list. In fact, Britain has been fighting with France on and off for centuries. All across the East are memorials to scores of conflicts. But the last time Britain faced France in battle, it was on the other side of the North Sea. For our last story, we're heading even further east to Belgium, to an unassuming farm called Hougoumont. This farm was the setting for one of Britain's most famous victories, better known by the name of the nearest town, Waterloo.
The history of war is, I think, inevitably written by people who have their own political perspective, and it will be biased. They will include what they think is salient, and there will be gaps. So archaeology provides us with the opportunity to uncover not only a different perspective, but to fill in some of that missing information, even on some of our most famous and well-documented battlefields.
For 23 years, the rest of Europe had been at war with the self-declared Emperor Napoleon, who was hell-bent on conquest of the entire continent. Waterloo was the final showdown, as Britain and its allies, led by the Duke of Wellington, faced the French army one last time in 1815. Digging for Britain first joined the team from the Waterloo Uncovered project back in 2016, when they found a hidden track into Hougoumont Farm. That route helped Wellington win the day, despite his troops being outnumbered and trapped inside the farmhouse.
If you've actually got quite an enclosed hedge line and you've got literally almost a tunnel, then that would have given him so much better cover.
They also uncovered evidence from the barrage of assaults that the British Army endured inside the farmhouse.
These explosive shells set fire to the chateau, the house, which burned to the ground, and the various outbuildings were burned as well.
But back in 2016, plenty of mysteries remained.
Most of the armies would have moved on by the time we get around to burying the dead. So we're talking about the local people, the farmers, the peasants, the people who lived on the land, trying to get rid of these bodies. So they tipped into a grave and got rid of.
Around 12,000 men died in this battle, and their graves have never been found. What happened to the bodies of the fallen? This year, the team are back at Hougoumont Farm, armed with a brand new survey of the battlefield that has helped them identify new targets for investigation. And they kept a record in their dig diaries.
So here we are, day one, back in Waterloo and back in Hougoumont as well. Now it's an interesting part of the battle because it's where basically the hostilities started. So this is where some of the first musket balls in the battle were actually fired on the 18th of June. So we opened this huge trench. We've already come up with a whole big pile of bricks, some kind of rubble, and then we're just going to bring that down slowly, see whether or not we can find anything else, see whether we can find a structure.
Today, this area is an open field on the south side of the farmhouse. But in 1815, it was heavily wooded, providing cover for both armies as they fought. Historic maps reveal a small cross at the site where the team have uncovered a brick pile. This feature is likely to have been a small woodland chapel or shrine, predating the battle here.
This curve looks like you'd find on an apse, the end of the building, which we see on these chapels.
Exactly. So we still have to clean it to be sure of that, but it seems to be the upside of the chapel. And what's interesting is that you can see that inside you have the declaration that shows that the inside of the building must have burned.
That's incredible. It'd be very tempting to say it was burned during the battle, as we know some of the buildings at Hougoumont, but if this was demolished earlier than the battle, quite violently, then that would make sense as well. But that's staggering.
Nearby, the team open up a second trench across another feature picked up by the geophysics. It appears to be a large pit. Could it be a missing mass grave?
Wow, it's very strong. And as I'm getting closer, is that... Oh, look.
There you go.
What's...
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a buckle straight off the battle site. That's the best find yet. Yeah.
As the team dig deeper, though, it appears empty. There's no sign of the missing Waterloo dead. Instead, this seems to be a quarry pit that was dug out much earlier. But there's evidence it was used in the battle, as morning broke on the 18th of June, 1815.
What we've come up with is something quite staggering. This was here as a quarry, and there is a lot of battle-related material in it. And so it looks as though they've used the front lip to shoot at the defenders to the north who have come down from the farm, and they will ultimately succeed in pushing them back to the farm. There are loads of books written on Waterloo. Not one of them mentions this.
Tony Pollard and Stuart Eve join me in the tent to discuss the findings of the long-running Waterloo Uncovered project.
I think I caught up with you 7 years ago and Waterloo Uncovered. You've done quite a bit since then and your focus has shifted.
We wanted to have a look at the whole of the battlefield, but this is where the fighting first started, isn't it, in terms of the very early skirmishes. You can see there's a lot of tiny little black dots. So we were hoping that we'd get a big pile of stuff and it would be great and there'd be loads of stuff there. I don't want to say mass grave, but I will say mass grave because we've never found a mass grave on the battlefield of Waterloo, but we didn't get that much stuff. It was a big quarry. That's what we found out.
It's close to the edge of the wood in the direction of French advance on the farm. They would have entered it fairly soon after going into the woodland, and they would undoubtedly have hunkered down behind its bank. And we've got the evidence for that in these artefacts.
Musket balls?
Yes, we've got thousands of these, I would imagine, by now. Importantly for us, if we're looking at two sides of a battle, we've got the Allies under Wellington.
All of those allies that have come
All of those
together to
allies,
face
but a lot of them
the
using the
face
same
Napoleon.
type of musket, the good old Brown Bess. And that's a .75 caliber.
Right.
But the great thing
smaller.
is that that's smaller. And that is .69, and the French are, by and large, using a Charleville musket, which fires a .69 musket ball. So we can tell who's shooting what.
That's incredible, isn't it? So we've got a kind of disappearing dead of Waterloo phenomenon.
Yes, it's unbelievable. In the 1830s, they do away with all the crops that the battle was fought through, and they go over to a monoculture of sugar beet. But what they then discover is that what's fashionable is the white sugar that we're familiar with today.
Yeah.
And to create that from sugar beet, what you have to do is process it. And you need a substrate to filter it through. And they found initially that charcoal worked quite well, but then they discovered the best thing is charred bone. There is a sugar refinery in Waterloo. It's still there, it's a hotel now, and there's a huge market for this bone in the 1830s. There's a story in a German newspaper from 1879, and somebody says that a better choice to stir into your coffee is honey, because then you don't risk stirring in the atoms of your great-grandfather in your morning cup of coffee.
It's not just a rumour then,
No,
it
it's
really
not.
was happening.
It's not. There are stories of industrialists buying the rights to mine the battlefield. We're now looking for empty grave pits where they've been in and they've quarried it out.
It's just bizarre, isn't it?
It's a strangely unsettling and macabre story. Perhaps we're not finding any burials at Waterloo because the graves were robbed and the bones ground up to be used for refining sugar. Or perhaps the graves are still lying there, waiting to be found.